All right. And allegedly, we are live. Hello, everybody. Thank you for
Hello,
joining in.
hello.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Today's not going to be contentious at all. The contentious part is when we invite some of these people on, which I absolutely will, if I can. But right now we're tiptoeing, right? We're trying to form. We're trying to form before you storm. And figure out how the hell we actually feel about things, because the topic at hand today is all the king's horses, right? All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty back together again. The conservative problem is that they sometimes try to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. They try to live in the past. They try to bring the past. They try to return with the stupid V, as usual. They're not incrementalists, which actually makes them somewhat of a revolutionary force, which revolutionary forces I'm on principle against because they're usually very stupid. But yeah, we have certain characters in it. I put them in the thumbnail. There's Academic Agent, Aaron McIntyre, a lot of these other conservatives. There's so many conservatives in the sphere. A lot of them I've muted on X because they've, not to quote Donald Trump's, one of his cringier words, but panicking is, I can't think of a better word, so I can't really cringe at it. If you want something better, do something better. I can't do better, so panicking it is. Yeah. Well, how do you feel about our conservative sphere at the moment?
Well, so there's that graph. Like, there's a wider range of opinion on the American right than there is on the American left, and
Yes. Yep.
The left is this tight little cluster, and the right is this broad constellation. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, that's broadly a good thing. But like the opening of Rules for Radicals, you have power. Now what?
Right.
You have to be discerning in who your friends and allies are, because sometimes they can be liabilities, sometimes they can be like covertly or overtly against you, and if you continue to treat them as friends, you're actually damning your own movement. Or if you continue to give them shelter and comfort. There's and there's elements of the right that are, for the Euros, do your thing. I actually want you to do your thing. I don't want you to be America. But like as we've sort of talked around in the past, the Euro right and the American right are not necessarily matched up very well. And we're in a position where there are people who, when we were out in the wilderness, were like strong in pushing the coalition and the message, but actually wind up having very different objectives from, say, broadly MAGA people or broadly American traditionalists. And it's often because they're European traditionalists.
Yep.
Or it's because they're engaged in the process of eating their own and becoming a liability or an enemy. So at least one of the items from the title card is relevant there.
Now I've got the cough. I've caught it. Yeah, exactly right. So Rules for Radicals, which is a really funny name because I thought it sounded a bit like testicles, but that's how it goes. You got to just power through it. I wrote that a long time ago, and it is a rules of engagement for people on the right. Now that and it's I guess somewhat prophetic. I'm not going to say prophetic, but it's useful. I wrote it to be useful now, presuming that the conservatives would get into power at some point. Let me see if I have it. You have power. What now? Yes. So it's all about this is the agenda of the whole thing. And I have a video on this. It's earlier. It's probably one of the first ones on my channel, but yeah, we've got a problem with ally, friend, acquaintance, opposition, and enemy, because we've got a lot of allies and friends who are actually enemies. So my problem would not be that the web of opinion on the right is wide and diverse. The problem is that some of those nodes are actually blue and they're pretending to be red. And the problem is that a lot of the European red is actually our blue, right? Like a lot of what they would consider conservative would actually be objectionable to what we're trying to conserve in America. The American project has crossed the Rubicon probably about 6 or 7 times in terms of ethno state. Like, if you think that America is ethnocentrically anything, like, what are you going to do? You're gonna get rid of all the Irish Catholics and all the other Catholics? You're going to get rid of the first
Poles,
wave of Mexicans?
the Finns. I mean,
yeah. How about that? Yeah.
I would make
New York.
and I have made the argument that America is an ethno state, but unlike European ethno states, it's not dependent on specific genetic lineages.
Yes, that's right.
It does follow the pattern of, okay, well, the ethno state is all of the tribes plus the over tribe that's held together about a common story of belonging together, and of shared ways of relating, customs, practices, fellow feeling that's all familiar and broadly compatible in service to this grander narrative of the over tribe.
Yeah.
The difference for America is it's, again, not genetically lineage based, but when we're thinking about who is an American and who do we accept as Americans, who do we invite into the tribe, we need to defend it like it's an ethno state.
Correct.
Just because it's about participating in and joining that tribe. Obvious fast tracks are marriage. We accept naturalization, although our naturalization standards are probably not high enough.
Well, not recently. They were high before. Like, we've had good naturalization. Yeah.
Did you see that there's that thing about, like, there are 55 million visa residences in the US? Like,
yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
If that's coming from the White House,
7 people, more or less.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, if that's true, we're going to have the biggest deportations ever, because we're going to look at people and be like, well, okay, so I will say a lot of those might be students, because we have a lot of student visas.
That's one of the things I'm actually, like, massively against when it comes to this scheme.
Right, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
like number one for me is obviously illegal aliens. Number 2, student visas and graduate student workers. Get out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know what? I would say that student visa. All right. This is a digression, by the way. Sorry about this. It's a digression, but I think it's a good digression. Okay. Where's the time mark? Yeah, 7.5 minute mark. This digression is that I think that international students are good. However, there should be very few of them, and they should be charged the exact same as the local students. Because if you start setting a financial incentive that these students are going to pay more, that means they're going to become worth more to the university. Second off, they should have pretty stringent community service. Like, when you get here, you are going to be busy with community service. You're going to be out here in the local community, because it's supposed to be, student visas are good for indoctrinating the globe's best and brightest to be Americans in their home country. It is good for us to indoctrinate foreigners, just like it's kind of good for us to, I don't know, put it in Roman terms. It'd be good for Rome to bring in foreigners once in a while to work or study so they can become more Roman, because hopefully they'd see the American way as the best. In a great patriotic world, imagine universities being patriotic. My God, if we won that house, if we won those institution of universities and they were just churning out patriots like they're churning out leftists right now, holy shit, this country would be amazing. Just converting foreigners, because that's what my experience with foreigners. I'm sorry, I'll just close with this. My experience with foreigners when I was going to school was that they were enamored with America and they really liked it. This was before the CCP started sending gaggles and gaggles, and India started sending gaggles and gaggles of students to America to pretty much just clean us out. Sorry. Yeah.
So I had a thought reflecting on our conversation with Luna last week. And she asked me at one point about, sort of what is like this American left cultural hegemon. And it hit me that there was a very important period. It's worth remembering that the 20th century in most of the globe, but also particularly in America with movements like progressivism and so forth, was extremely hubristic. Like had this rationalistic, conviction in the certitude and rightness of its cause, in its mastery of the domains of knowledge, which were actually remarkably limited. And where this American hegemon that resulted in this sort of globo homo, this globo homo attitude, this very cosmopolitan monoculture, and resulted
Right.
in something like the foreign the foreign policy blob. Most of the people who were foundational in creating it were people like Woodrow Wilson, who came out of who was president of Harvard and very much
Yeah.
involved in the Ivy League, New England Puritan American strain of things.
Yes.
And then it was basically all people who were turned out of the Ivy Leagues in the teens, 20s, and 30s. That went on to create a settled deep state, among other
Yes.
things.
Yeah, and
So
and to
you've
indoctrinate
talked
Europe.
about
Yeah.
so you've talked about sort of this this American cultural hegemon that was New England, and how it actually kind of doesn't as time has issued forward, really doesn't reflect most of what people would consider American. There's actually a really traceable lineage in the early 20th century
Yeah.
to why the American government feels so un-American.
Right, and it's it is a Anglo thing in its root, and that's what I was trying to get at. And I don't think the Anglos want to acknowledge that their propensity to dictate morality is actually what is their undoing, because that's exactly what's being done to them right now. Is now their government is now, instead of hectoring the India colony or the Australia colony or whatever other colony, they're now hectoring their own people. So now the English have to rebel against the British Empire.
Right.
And the moral hectoring is a part of the puritanical way, and the Puritans are Anglos, right? So this the thing of like, we know better than you, we know better than you, and we're gonna surreptitiously colonize you through the university system. So like California is very New England in terms of that. Like the university system is very much an Anglo institution in America, and it's been a reason why the American packaged wokeness is so infectious over there, because it spreads all of this stuff. Everything that's happening in America that has gone wrong has actually been a vestige, I believe, maybe not everything, but most things have been a vestige of the British Empire's moral, their moral empire, right? And I've got a video that I'm going to blabber on about at some point soon that is like, all moral empires end up this way, right? You will build up so much resentment and make so constrictive of a society that corruption is actually the only way you can get an outlet. And it will eventually collapse in on itself just because it then hates itself. Like the liberals in the cities putting up with tons of crime is actually part of their penitence. Like when they get robbed, they're like, I deserve it because I'm intrinsically bad, and it's part of my penitence for existence, and because of all the privilege I have. They're finding new reasons to lash themselves. They're unsatisfied with the level of punishment that God has given them, so they've decided to become their own God and punish themselves, because they just need to feel more holy or something, right? This holier than thou shit is very down to like the council level, and you could see it in England of like, well, I'm a little bit better than you, and you can see it with the English, how they argue is that Americans don't mind the fact that we've done horrible stuff. Like typically, when I say Americans, like heartland Americans, like we don't try and like morally justify or morally defend every single bad decision we make. We'll just say like, well, that was a bad decision. We decided not to do that anymore. And I think to close out on this little issue here is that a lot of what is happening in America is the two last seeds of Albion that have survived, which is the Scots-Irish attitude versus the New England Puritan attitude. So we're having the last vestiges of the seeds of Albion have been trying to kill each other, and it should be, because they're also opposed. This is why I don't agree with a lot of the racial purists. And now there's actually a pretty good weave. A lot of the ethno-purists, the sort of continental-style ethno-purists in America, who think that we're homogenous just because we're all Anglo. It's like, no, these Anglos were burning each other alive back in the old country. Like they hate each other. They're not homogenous. Just because they have the same, like the blood is not magic. Okay. The Civil War is ostensibly two different Anglo tribes murdering each other, and then the North throwing Irishmen at them, and the South throwing Scotsmen at them. And anyways, that's my spiel about that. I would love to weave this in now about like, what are the miscalculations of the modern conservative, because they are trying to go back to some sort of ethnic America that is blood ethnic, not American identity. I don't agree with you necessarily that America needs to have an ethnicity because the words do matter. And I know that ethnicity is strong, but identity might be better than American. But identity can be assumed, so that word's been eroded by the left. So
yeah. I mean, essentially, it's that we need a tribe.
we need a tribe. The American. I like the tribe. We'll just say tribe.
Yeah, and we do need to be tribal about it. I just want to close the loop first on international students. I have very much an Eric Weinstein perspective on this, and I think the preponderance of student visas is a lot of why you see the problem you're seeing in the engineering world of qualified talent simply doesn't exist. Combined with the H-1B visa program, particularly for graduate and postgraduate level work in universities, laboratories, etc., lets you get very low wage people who are entirely dependent on their employer and prone to not rocking the boat, and also depressing wages in the hard sciences, particularly for R&D research laboratories and research universities.
It might be.
This is actually like the amount to which we're handing out student visas and incentivizing foreigners to populate our laboratories, etc. When they don't have necessarily long-term loyalty, or if they decide to leave, they essentially drain our expertise for free at almost no cost to themselves. It's actually just straight up bad for us in a strictly practical sense to do this. It's good in short term for incumbent players, but bad for the country.
I have a new idea that's going to make us both very happy. What if we just demanded that if foreigners want to get American educated, we'll just take a campus on their home country. We'll just ship in Americans to teach. And then like a university professor might just have a tour of duty. Like, I'm going to go to South Korea for 3 years and teach physics. And that way they get their education and they get Americanized. We can turn the whole campus into a mini America. This is by the way, I'm a strict American imperialist. I am such a bastard about this. You will eat the hamburgers. You will buy from the Herb hamburger clown. Damn it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the way the French lycée college system works, or worked for a long time?
It's a good way of working. I mean, I can't say about the French lycée college because I'm not familiar with it, but that's good on the French. They seem to be pretty smart. I gotta shoot my shot and ask that Pascal guy from Twitter if he wants to come and join us sometime. Yeah, it'd be fun as hell. He's got his own podcast.
But yeah, so America, the tribe, and where American conservatism gets disordered, just like we were talking about with identity or ethnicity, there's a lot of undermining or conflating of terms and separate categories of things all traveling under one label. That makes it very easy to equivocate or misidentify intellectual movements. So I mean, I think the short version is, we're seeing the conflict of three broad conservative traditions. One is and just idea traditions in general. Liberalism also suffers from this, and if anyone, if you've ever done research on the intellectual history of liberalism, you will observe very early on there is English liberalism, and continental liberalism, and they get mixed very quickly at your peril.
And this is why I don't like when people bring up American I had this argument before, is that American liberalism, classical liberalism, is very different from like continental one. Like, we don't have this. I asked somebody once, like, they were giving me crap because they were saying like American liberals or American classical liberalism is just going to is wrong because of this, that, and the other. And then one of the things they said was blank slate theory. I was like, do you think one of the founding fathers believed in blank slate theory? Do you think they like looked at their black slave and was like, that's just like me? Probably not. America just picks what it wants. Okay. So, and that's in its a la carte way of dealing with things. The American liberalism and conservatism is very much unique to America because we don't pick up a lot of the stuff. We pick up what we like, what we see, right? But we're not slaves to the ideology, right? Like, when you say liberals, like, I'm a liberal, it's like, I don't first off, no liberal anywhere, America or otherwise, is going to subscribe to the entire ball of wax that is liberalism. I'm sure there's stuff that they disagree on. Just like you could find a communist and like find out there's something they disagree with Marx on. I'm sure. I'm sure. So yeah, I don't hold an entire ideology against its worst principles, right? They're not holy documents, at least not to me. But yes, there's multiple schools of thoughts. You said 3 in conservatism.
Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned in your video that came out today is that American conservatism and American liberalism are actually really, really, really close together. Because they're mostly about defending the same concept. But I mean, they're essentially variable in a lot of ways based on their constitutive regional cultures and where the particular tribes that espouse the variations came from. I mean, you have Federalists, Anti-Federalists. Anti-Federalists were principally Southern, but not exclusively. And
well, and look at woke. Okay, so what you must know about the power of your identity is how your enemy will bend themselves to fit that identity, right? So what does woke do? Well, one of the principles of woke is their equity, right? Their argument for equity is they want people to have an equal opportunity at life. So they've built themselves around having equal opportunity. And I think most Americans are like, yeah, equal opportunity. That sounds good. The thing that they do is they say that people need to have equal circumstances and equal access and equal results, outcomes at the end, right?
It's essentially equal opportunity is another way of saying equal outcomes, just with extra steps.
Exactly. And so if anybody at marker 21 minutes or so wants to know the main difference between European and American conservatism is that American conservatism wants equality. They just want equality of opportunity. Like everybody gets a shot. And a lot of conservatives would be very unhappy if there wasn't this is a weird one. Okay, this is a weird one. A lot of conservatives would be very upset if there wasn't a public library at which a poor kid could study to like get into Yale. Like his dream is to get into Yale, right? He's got to have a place to study. He's got to have access to. So we just give him access to the books. Well, a library is actually kind of a somewhat socialist thing to do. Is like we're going to use public funds, but the thing is, the public funds are usually local, and that's okay with us. Like
and they also historically used to be private.
Oh, the libraries?
Yeah, a lot of the public libraries were private endowments and entailments. The robber barons were actually like legendary for how many of these they set up.
America is extremely charitable, by the way. So we are like, I'm sure if I took a few minutes, I could make a clever thing of like, was it Kawaii in the streets, Senpai in the sheets? But we're like, we're Darwinist in the streets and we're socialist in the sheets. Like you just get a little bit close to us and we're very helpful. Like any city kid that wanted to could probably just write letters to churches around the Midwest or the South. Be like, I'm trying to have a better life. I need help. And you'd get free housing and like free education and a job lined up for them. Yeah. Like we're very giving.
So I'm gonna read something very quick here. This is important for setting, and I mean we can go into.
You want to share? Do you want to share it?
British and conservative. It's just the preamble to the Constitution.
Oh, all right, yeah, all right. Bring out your Constitution, guys.
This is the thing that struck me reflecting on the conversation we had with Luna, and thinking about where some of these discussions like hit term mismatches. Okay. So American liberalism, British liberalism, continental liberalism. You also have similar splits in conservatism. British and American tend to be fairly similar in that they're aligned around a shared set of values versus continental conservatism and liberalism. The liberalism is far more extreme and radical and at points in overt metaphysical rebellion against being. And continental conservatism is far more rigid, far more hierarchical, and basically reactionary in its outlook. Whereas British conservatism and American conservatism are far less reactionary.
We're very it's basically incrementalists versus revolutionaries in America. Yeah, all right, so go ahead. Preamble, yeah.
Okay, so this establishes the American perspective and how you can find things very quickly that don't fit with American traditions. So we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of items, and like American leftists, not American liberals, American leftists will glom onto "we
Yep.
the people of the United States" and attempt to smuggle in, a sort of
I
Marxian or socialist conception of that term. But it's just
Mhm.
we the people who live here and are doing this thing, establishing this shared community. In order to, so this is what our politics is oriented around attaining. Form a more perfect union. That one got a little weird in the 1860s. Establish justice,
Mhm.
ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. That one gets a little more dog whistly, but essentially making sure
Right,
people are
right,
whole and well. And
right.
this is a really important one. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So it's securing the blessings of liberty in the light of the others. That is essentially being able to lead a self-directed life responsibly that doesn't jeopardize any of the things that are necessary to ensure that for a whole community.
Yes.
And our posterity. It's future oriented. This is not just a one and done thing. We're not doing this to, to set up a winner take all and damn the posterity. It's no, our posterity gets justice, domestic tranquility, common defense, general welfare, and blessings of liberty also.
Right.
So notable things that are missing from there, apart from some terms which have been construed as very dog whistly. Equality.
Okay.
Equality is actually not deeply important.
Right, it's not in there.
Right. I mean, we're like justice, tranquility, general welfare, which I'm interpreting in a specific way, and blessings, common defense, blessings of liberty.
Mhm.
So one of the sins, particularly of British liberty, is John Stuart Mill, John Locke, etc., attempting to harmonize and attenuate equality, sort of extending Christian, made in the image of God downward to the political order, where they're dealing with a stratified aristocracy, is not necessarily, and dealing with the injustice around that is not necessarily a social problem Americans had to remedy.
Right.
And so we don't have to attenuate equality and liberty in our conception of justice, tranquility, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's really important, when somebody is bringing in ideas that don't mesh with, okay, here's what the American political tradition is based around. We deliberately decided it's this. We decided to include the Declaration of Independence because it supports this. We also deliberately decided to omit and lied over the period between the Declaration of Independence and this Constitution. There was a previously ordered government, which this illegally replaced, but we're not talking about that because our political system is this.
Yeah, the sovereign citizen argument. Yeah, exactly. Which is very funny because a lot of people will. Well, I'll get on it later, but well. Yeah, one of the issues that we have is that I listened to an argument that happens online with I don't know, I'm gonna call them like West Glazers. That's what I'm gonna call them, Western Glazers. Was they'll compare like medieval knights to samurai. Like, well, samurai could never get through our armor. It's like, well, they never had to, so they didn't have their weapons weren't designed to get through European armor because there wasn't European armor around. They're designed to heave through like relatively unarmored people. Like iron was really hard to come by, so you'd have like slats of iron on a suit of armor, so they were there to get decisive blows on weak points. A man clad entirely of armor is not even a thing they're thinking about. So yeah, of course they're going to lose to a guy in armor. They've never seen it before, So when you look at America's founding principles, we're not there to. It wasn't there to take on what I would call all these foreign problems of like a hierarchical, strict blue-blooded society. And I'm starting, like listening to you now, I'm starting to realize that continental conservatism and continental liberalism are like outside on the extremes of both the Anglo and American conservatism and liberalism. Like these two guys can actually get along just fine most of the time, as long as there's not some like bullshit. You know what I mean? It's like we got along okay, and like, was it 70s, 80s, 90s. 70s was rocky, but like we usually have a presidency where we lampoon each other. You could look at, by the way, if you want to see the relationship of the different political parties, you can just look at what they said about the other one, right? And you can look at even Saturday Night Live, which was from the, I believe, from the 70s onward.
What's
right?
that? What's
Like-
that Simpsons one where they have the
George Bush on.
Democratic?
Oh yeah, the Quotos, right? I voted for Quotos. Yeah. This,
No. The Republican Party and the Democrat Party conventions. I'll see if I can find it. Keep
All
going.
right, yeah, sure. Yeah, is that the one where they put Sideshow Bob as a Republican candidate? I don't remember.
I don't
Alrighty.
remember. They just have like a roll through, and like the the two parties are like, oh, here's an image of it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and pop it into the share or pop it into the private chat, and I'll share it.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the private chat.
Okay.
Oh my God! Thanks, Google. Thanks.
Oh, you know
for
what?
the
You can
giant
share an
zero.
image file. You can actually just share an image file on here. Go to present your invite.
Yeah. 1 second.
Yeah, the
You pull it up because you're more proficient in this.
Okay, got it. I got it. What is this? Okay, there we go. All right. I apologize for the 1 second here. Share screen. Oh, here we go. Boom. And put it on the stage. There we go. Republican convention inside. We want what's worst for everyone. We're just plain evil. Democratic. We hate life and ourselves. We can't govern. There we go. Yeah, exactly. Did Law? Okay, yeah. Howdy Doodly absolutely got it. By the way, he was way early on that. So good for you, Howdy Doodly. Yeah, we can't govern. Yeah, the relationship between our opposition has actually been pretty friendly most of the time. Like this stuff between Trump and the Dems right now is very continental. But I will also say that the Dems are the ones who are doing it. I mean, do you not believe in your heart of hearts that if Nancy Pelosi started saying nice things about Trump and like had an apology letter on nice letterhead, that Trump wouldn't say, "That's very gracious of you, Nancy. You know, we've had our differences, but Trump would just be like, okay, I apologize. I accept your apology, and you're a good person at heart." You know, so we'd just move on with it. It's the Dems who have borrowed from this like Frankfurt. I don't know if I'm going to just start slandering. I'm going to start slandering and slurring this sort of Frankfurt School bullshit that became woke here in American universities. They've like swallowed it up hook, line, and sinker. And I feel like the Democratic Party is under the capture of their younger staffers who are, I mean, if you just look at Newsom's Twitter, it is like absolute millennial coded garbage. It's like his staffers must have him captured. Like by the way, anyone who's ever been a boss or ever been a supervisor, you know that the people who work for you eventually can enslave you with their bullshit. It's like they're showing up late. I guess you're just gonna have to deal with that, or you're gonna have to just do their stuff before they get here because firing them is too difficult and too public, and would make. By the way, firing your own employees makes you look bad. So he's probably just weathering the storm. I think he just said "F you" to somebody on his Twitter. It's like this is unprofessional, but this sort of continental liberalism has pervaded in American politics, and I would say on one side, and has ruined it. But that's the problem is that can spread anywhere else too, right? America is just the one who just snorted it and packaged it, you know?
Right. Well, there's also, you know, continental liberalism that's infused the other side. I mean, you know, we call them rhinos, we call them Republican war hawks and the foreign policy blob. Like it's on both sides.
I've heard that they were called Trotskyites, right? Isn't the neocons where have like some Trotsky connection? I saw that on
Oh God, I don't know about that, but that wouldn't be terrifically surprising to me.
Yeah, it's part of the neocon way is the moral empire, the return of the moral empire. We'll spread democracy,
right?
Yeah, so that's the same bullshit, just different packaging. Like we'll spread it. Anyways, yeah, they'll spread it by force either way. It's really just appeals to your temperament, which one you are in that case. It's the same stuff, which is why it was called the Uniparty.
Right. And we had 3 back-to-back elections where like there actually weren't substantial differences between the candidates on both sides. So Bush versus Kerry, Obama versus McCain, Obama versus Romney. they all belong to the same political philosophy, and it's, you know, you can call it
They went to the same school.
neoconservatism, neoliberalism. Like, they're the same school.
Yeah.
And they represent the same policies. They're going to be controlled by the same group of people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I think that the miracle of America is actually Trump. And it's not because Trump is a great man and he showed up like Caesar. By the way, this whole like, I want Caesar to show up stuff is the gayest shit I've ever heard. I was like, guys, you need to make
it's low agency, low responsibility. I just want somebody to fix it for me, and I want it now.
Honor based. And then, by the way, when they have their Caesar, they would criticize them when they make one thing, when they do one thing they don't agree with. It's so bitchy.
Yeah. But that's also like a good way to suss out the
gonna weave back into R. McIntyre. Just kidding.
Yeah. To suss out the people. Aaron McIntyre's mostly done a good job of keeping his nose clean, but like somebody like AA or whatever. And I mean, he's not American, you know, like it kind of doesn't matter to us.
Is he British?
But
is AA really British?
That's a question for them to answer, and I would find that fascinating to watch them.
Well, because he's all about the British culture, but is he really temperamental wise like a Brit? That'd be an interesting. That's a hand grenade I'd throw over the wall and let them debate. By the way, if you give a tempting debate to a Brit, they can't help themselves, which is, by the way, how the left is able to just distract them constantly. You just throw them things to argue about, and they'll just argue about some stupid bullshit. At some point, that's why the Scots-Irish, like Southerner of America, just brought Trump onto the stage and said, like, we don't care about the debate at all. We don't care. It's like, you called us racist. I'm not even going to argue again. Like, it's the quintessential Brit is someone who would argue that they're not racist. You call them racist, and they're going to argue that they're not.
Oh, I would say that Aaron McIntyre doesn't have bad takes, howdly doodly. I'm just saying he mostly keeps his nose clean from, you know, the thing where you can suss out the people who are like friends you made in the wilderness, but when when you come into a commanding position, reveal themselves to actually just be friends of convenience and willing to stab you in the back.
Yes.
Is they're not willing to say, hey, let them cook. Like, the sentiment of loyalty simply isn't there. And like, no, you disagree with me, I'm going to say you're illegitimate and try and get you out. And it's like, bro, this coalition won pretty handily, but I'm pretty sure your coalition without this, you know, like without Trump or whoever, is not going to come anywhere close. Like, you know, hold the shit in your pants, you stormy little baby.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that bullshit. I had one about the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, which was actually my most disliked video. Which I was like, at the time it is. I was like, this aged pretty well, I think, though, because I was like, you guys are all
I think it's reasonable.
Pissy pantsy shitting yourself over something that's actually a nothing burger, just because you haven't played the simulation in your head of like, if he doesn't do this, am I still going to support him? Like, you haven't even cut, you know. So now you get to the point where you have to make a decision, and you panic and you freak out, and you act like a little girl. But anyways, yeah, this is a concept that I've actually thought about. Is like, we've had a lot of influencers on our way up, and it's another video that I want to do probably tomorrow or sometime this weekend, called Killing Your Messengers. Like, when to kill the messengers. So we had a lot of people who were good commenters when we were a revolutionary force, or like counter-revolutionary force. Actually, that's a better way of putting it. But now that we're in power, like, these people got to go. Like, they are such liabilities, because they need the clout. And by the way, anyone I think is financially dependent on Twitter is a liability. Anyone who's financially dependent on YouTube is probably a liability. Have a day job. That's probably why you guys are viewing us. Is like, we don't have a stake in it. Like, if I have 3 months where nothing is happening, I'll just not say anything. I don't need to start shit. I don't need to like get a rumor from the Wall Street Journal that Trump is gonna give amnesty, and then have a shit fit about it and piss my pants, only for a spokesperson to say, like, we didn't talk about that. Like, right. I'm not going to be like Jack Posobiec and retweet Axios when it suits my needs.
Well, that's also like, you know, when you can tell the genuine article from like a talking head is like, oh, nothing's happening. Well, now is time to run and present advanced R&D rather than picking over the news cycle constantly. Like, if nothing's happening, your Idea Lab should be going furiously.
That's true. Okay, so back though to academic agent right now. Like, I have this rules for radicals. By the way, I have the rules. Are you able to flip the slides on rules for radicals? I don't know what your UI looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just on the Google thing. I can pull it up if you want me to present it.
No, I'm presenting it already. It's already in the
okay. Yeah.
Presentation. Feel free to tell me what slide you want me to go on to. But yeah, friend behavior. Okay, so my argument is, here's my feel. I love to get my feelings first, and then maybe over discussion I'll change my mind. But I saw that. I was distracting because it's like another subject in of itself. The nothing ever happens is always a cope mentally for unable to deal with nuance and delayed gratification actions like this will have, or uncertainty. All right, so you just say nothing. I'd say bombing the shit out of Iran's nuclear program is a pretty big deal since they've been building it since the 80s.
Yeah,
that's like 45 years worth of bullshit has now gone out the window, and now they're no longer a major threat, and we just kill anyone who takes their money, and we're not giving them $1 billion. It's a pretty big deal, pretty big change. Anyways, yeah. So let me know what slide you want me to go to. But my gut feeling on Academic Agent is that he has his own biases. I really like the guy in terms of his mind, but I think he is so anti-American that he becomes a liability. So let me know if I can.
Right. Well, I mean, so he's an odd one because he's clearly very intelligent, but there's a lot of liability categories. One, if we're coming from an American perspective, this guy is exercising a completely different political tradition, and like it's actually incompatible. Because if we go back to the preamble, AA is at this point mostly running continental European conservatism. So like Schmitt, elite theory, de Maistre, etc.
Well, that would put him in the friend category at best, right? Because he does not share a metaphysical framework, which is fine.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like that political tradition, just like if you put this into a Heights style, like, okay, which of these moral foundations are you really interested in? From our perspective, justice, yeah, we could do with some justice. Domestic tranquility, okay, that's a strong value. Common defense, strong value. General welfare, weakly held value. Secure the blessings of liberty. No value on this foundation whatsoever. It is strictly instrumental and generally viewed as counterproductive.
Well, is that how AA would feel it, you think?
Oh, super duper.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he wants to be left unmolested, but his view of the political does not place any particular metaphysical worth on the blessings of liberty.
Interesting. Why would you say that? I suppose. Like, what is he?
So I essentially, and this is
like 4chan stuff. Like he wants 4chan banned, and he wants the. I don't know if that. Like, I could argue that's more of a national sovereignty thing, maybe.
I mean, I think it's just he's a lol cow and seems to demonstrate a lot of signs of personal, like, psychological insecurity, but I don't necessarily want to mind read.
I know. I came to a similar conclusion because he gets very angry, and there's no reason to get that angry over the internet. It's just words.
Yeah. Anyways, the reason I say this is foundational outlooks like elite theory. It's really interesting to analyze where agency lives in any political system. Movements like elite theory essentially constitute agency in the political sense as only the sovereign has agency, like genuine sense. And that's their moral universe is fixated entirely around the sovereign, and sort of from that perspective, the sovereign needs huge domains for action and for agency, but in order to do that, everyone else must perforce have less. In order for the king to be great, the French must be small.
Right. Well, it's also they assume that the king's going to be great. The problem with all the monarchists is they want a king, but I point out that your king doesn't hate you, but he hates the things you stand for.
Right. Like if he's acting on your political philosophy, then yeah, he does.
Well, and that's exactly And the thing is, they want their king. They want
king, or I think deeply to be king. Because essentially, where agency is where the privately attainable godhood lives.
Right.
And if you assume a political system where like moral agency exists effectively only in the sovereign, you become sort of like you necessarily have to become obsessed with it if you're interested in realizing your metaphysical order and accomplishing a moral ordering of society. It's one, either a logical avoidance of responsibility, or two, a demand for, well, I'm thinking about the moral ordering in this way, so I or my people that I influence or control should have this agency. There's a Nietzsche thing. There's two Nietzsche quotes that I'm probably only going to paraphrase. Brutus must kill others or he will surely kill himself. And how can there be gods and I bear not being one of them?
Right. I saw
that's essentially once you get too deep into this like pure power politics and agency lives solely at the sovereign level, you can't escape that position in terms of just your internal metaphysics.
Yeah,
you simply cannot.
It's interesting because Academic Agent wrote the book, The Populist Delusion. And I always disagreed with that, is that the populism is actually a huge part of American politics on either side. Yep. Like they choose the leader. They basically get to select the pool of elites that get to go on. Like,
no, yeah. And Americans find it weird and aberrant that we actually have a stagnant, persistent elite class that's actually opposed to ordinary Americans and holds a set of values and political concepts that's different from us.
We hate long-time incumbents. Absolutely.
America and like MAGA, Drain the Swamp, all these slogans are essentially saying circulate the elites, but don't create a new like instantiated permanent class, return sovereignty to the people of America.
Well, let me
because essentially if you remove this moral busybodying, we believe we are capable of conducting ourselves in such a manner to govern our own affairs.
And that's what you're going to see from, okay, so this is two subjects came up. Okay. So I'm just going to try and put one into heap, and then I'm just going to go on with the one that's in RAM. Is that yes, a swamp, metaphysically, what a swamp is stagnation, right? That's why the word swamp is so resonant, because when you think of a swamp, you think of water that's been still so long that corruption has grown in it, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you have to drain the swamp. Second off, what I put in a heap was that your point that Americans without leadership will conduct themselves well. This is actually a crucial part of the American identity. Okay, so one of my favorite YouTubers for pro-America stuff, like proper American history, is actually Fat Electrician. You follow him? He's great. He's great.
Not consistently, but I've seen his stuff.
There's two videos I think are a must, or maybe three. There's the 442nd Fat Electrician video, which is, by the way, how you become American by combat, by valor. Like you can become an American by pure veterancy, which people say like, oh, in Americans, it's not a meritocracy. Well, then why are so many people that want to be Americans have merited it so damn well? Because Japanese, like ethnic Japanese, are the most decorated division in U.S. history, U.S. Army history, probably U.S. military history. And their slogan was "Go for broke." Mm-hmm. Second video that's really good, just for its sheer enjoyment value, but the great story that it tells is there's a unit that is the old guys. They're the ones who are at Heartbreak Ridge, I think. It's just a bunch of old guys. The Army did it as an experiment, and these old guys just absolutely kicked ass.
Yeah.
Then there's a sniper.
The Ride of Paul Revere had in the battles of Lexington and Concord had a division of old guys who decisively captured an ammunition shipment. And then the Gray Ghost, who was just like this one old hard ass who would ride around on his horse, like dismount, shoot, and was just like the messenger of death on that day.
Yes. Old bastards. We love our old bastards. Anyways, I want to write a poem. I'm going to take a note that I should write some poetry this weekend. Yeah, I write poetry like a queer, but that's okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Write poem style Rudyard on being an American. you're the man now, dog. Start a poem by like grabbing some Rudyard Kipling, like to be a man, and it's like to be an American, because Americans are not born. All right, I'm a big believer that Americans are not born. Being an American is like being a Christian. Let me tell you about a different type of Christians. Okay, that you said. Take the Cossacks. There's two things you need to be a Cossack. Will you convert to Christianity, and will you fight? That's it. That's it. Which is a little bit of a microcosm of what America is. America is if you want to commit to America being a Christian nation, that means you can convert to being an American. Because America, like Christianity, is mostly Gentiles who are all grafted onto the tree of the God's old chosen ones, right? Like Jesus had to be convinced to convert Gentiles. Okay, so in that way, Christ transcended the ethno. This is by the way, this is where I disagree with Carl, and I disagree with the philosophers on how Christianity is. Oh, it's very much Aristotelian, and it's Plato and all those other Greek fuckers. No, this is very much transcends ethnos. It's transcendent. If you want to be like, if you had as I said in my video before, if you had some fat, ingrateful, communist, antisocial, not making any money, like living in his mom's basement, but he's a heritage American, his blood is from the Mayflower. Then you had Jose like fought in a war under machine gun fire, Medal of Honor, opened a business, married a nice girl, treats her well, has barbecues in his like nice 1960s style neighborhood house with all of his neighbors, gets to know everybody, goes and takes care of the grandma on his street. Like, Jose is an American. And Jose, by the way, has renounced his citizenship to Cuba. He hates the Cuban government. He spits on pictures of Castro. He loves America. He flies that flag. 100% American. That man's an American. Jose's an American. Go suck on it. I don't care what year he converted over to Americanism. I don't compare Christians when I go to church, and I don't compare Americans when I go. However, I do know when someone is not a real Christian when I'm at church. And I do know when someone's not a real American when I'm in America. You could tell. And a lot of people that were born into the church shouldn't be there. And a lot of people that were born into America, honestly, like when you see wokeism and how a lot of it is the descendants of these New England wokesters, and they're the ones tearing the nation apart. They're the ones imposing moral standards on people. They're the ones violating the Christian principle of dust your sandals off and move on. They're forcing everyone to be in their religion of wokeism. Right. This is why I don't believe in this Christian nationalism crap either, because they want everyone to be a Christian in their nation. Christians do not force people to convert. That is very Islamic. That's very communist. We don't do that crap. Yeah. So the American identity is something you can convert into. So I get a little bit riled up. I get a little bit violent. I get a little bit in my dander about people who say who is an American, who isn't. Like, what's the measure of a man? What's the measure of a Christian? What's the measure of an American? Valor. You'll know them by their fruits. Like Christ already gave you guidance. And the thing is, you will know them by their fruits is inherently meritocratic. So yeah, anybody who's like this ethnic blood, like magical blood Americans, full of crap. Which is why I put them strictly on the opposition. And maybe the enemy, right? And I also put, by the way, I put liabilities in the enemy category for a reason, okay? So enemies are people that do not share. Yeah, all right. So yeah, I'll put this one on Cosmo while he's taking a bio break. Forced morality also obviates the requirement that people are good. Correct. Exactly. Like having a nation that forces you, we want people to choose to be Americans. Like every American makes a choice. America is a Baptist country in that way. Is that when you become a man, at whatever age we consider that to be, whether it's 8 by the baptismal tradition, whether it's 13 by the Jewish tradition, or whether it's 18 by the legal tradition, you choose to be an American or not. Which is why we need to have a prison colony. I think we should just talk to El Salvador. Anyone who's a communist is just like, we're just going to send them to another country. It's like all the commies go to like Brazil or something like that. Go make your communist utopia over there and quit effing with my votes. Anyways, yes, I want to talk about enemies and liabilities. So does not abide by common rules of decency. All right, so common rules of decency is how you conduct yourself. Common rules of decency is how you engage with the opposition, right? So if I go back to the opposition slide, this is all from my presentations, a video I did a long time ago about rules for radicals. Opposition. All right, yes, yeah. Has ideological and political goals opposing yours. So they are your opposition. They do want you to fail. They want themselves to succeed. And it's mutually exclusive. But they abide by common rules of decency, which means the common rules of decency is something that you can navigate around. It's a game that anybody can win based on, guess what? Merit. Okay. I know that AA hates merit. He likes to make fun of Jordan Peterson saying merit a lot, but that's because he's not an American and he never will be. And he doesn't want to be, but he's not a Westerner because I think the English, well, maybe the English don't believe in merit. If the English don't believe in merit, then go screw them. And that's why they're in the position they're in now. So screw them. Anyways, yes, enemies. They do not abide by common rules of decency. They will break the rules. Okay. We have a certain rule for decency. You don't dox people. You don't threaten their families. You don't try and take their job away. Okay. Because they disagree with you. All right. These are common rules of decency. You don't like slander them. Okay. What else is a common rule of decency? Bodily harm, economic harm, slander, so reputational harm. You're going to meet. Decency means you meet them on the battlefield of ideas. Okay, these people are fighting an asymmetric warfare, not on the battlefield of ideas. So even if they politically align but violate the common rules of decency, they are liabilities. Because since they're violating the rules, they will justify the rules being violated against you. So you have to crush them.
I would also say part of the CROD, the common rules of decency, is not like treating everybody like they're in the appropriate camp. Also, extending good faith is an element of it, but you don't treat friends or allies like enemies.
This is correct. Yes. Yeah. So do I have a slide where I really outline the common rules of decency? I don't remember if I do or not.
I think so. Yeah, it's slide 19.
Okay, cool. I should have put that up front. Yes, act your role. Allies should act like allies, etc. Value human life. Value honesty and truth. Act in your constituents' audience best interests. Conduct yourself with dignity. Appropriate levels of emotionality per the occasion. That's violated. That's violated so much. It's like we got a bunch of screaming school children on the right. It's so fucking frustrating. It's like, you guys need to shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck.
Yeah, contain your emotional incontinence.
If you hear a rumor, just retweet it with like the little eye emoji that you're looking at it. That's all you got to do. Then you get credit for like looking at it. You get the stupid ex-Elon bucks, and you don't actually erode anything. You're just like, I'm keeping my eye on this. Anyways, all right. Bunch of fucking theater kids. I swear to God, if I ever go to a conservative meetup, I'm going to be in the lobby just like drop kicking people like I'm fucking Rick. Yeah.
So if you go to, I think we cover AA first and then we cover Oron McIntyre. I think Oron McIntyre falls and Dave the Distributist also falls into this category of like, I don't think these people are allies or friends anymore.
Yes, let's talk about that. So, like, we'll go through AA, but yeah, and let's talk about like back to enemies here. Yeah. So, I just want to just go here. They don't just want you to your ruthless opposition. Okay, here's the part that really gets me. Okay, this pissed me off with AA is that they don't just want to win and you lose. They want you gone. I got a feeling that AA wants America in its own woke hell and suffering from everything, and they want us not doing well, right? It's not just about I want America out of our business. It seems to be like my mood, like that I've been getting for a while, is that AA starts attacking like the American empire or attacking the American identity and stuff like that. It's like, you don't have to do that. It's not necessary. You could just want us out of your business, and we'd actually respect that quite a bit because we totally relate with wanting people out of our business.
Right.
But yeah. That they will do anything to win. So far, the right, when they get shitty, when they go shitty, like they go enemy or liability, they tend to still stay pretty squeamish. Whereas like the left will just straight up, like Hasan will just suggest people attack you and kill you. They don't.
Right.
The right doesn't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
probably because
look at the breakdowns between Hasan and Ethan Klein and
yeah, that's
who's
pretty good.
Who's that other goober recently who beclowned himself?
I don't know. It's a weird YouTube sphere. It's like YouTube 2.0, just like killing themselves, like immolating each other. It's pretty funny, but I don't know. I don't like Ethan Klein either because of other stuff he said. Like I'm sure that if Hasan was gone, he'd turn around and hate my guts.
Well, yeah. He's also participated in enemy behavior.
Yeah, and by the way,
look at his treatment of Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way,
look at the period when him and Hasan had a show together.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. By the way, that's a good point.
Thank you, Hadley Doodley.
iDubbbz. That's right. Yeah, but that's by the way the main point though is once you become an enemy or a liability, you're gone. You're out of the game. You Panda Express. Mm-hmm. Panda Express. Ethan, I think, is useful is he useful as an ally? I think he's useful as an enemy of my enemy, and those are not the same thing. I would be okay with Ethan and Hasan immolating each other.
Yeah,
but I would not.
The enemy of my enemy is my enemy's enemy, nothing more.
Yeah, like it's like you got two people having a fist fight, and you could be involved in the fist fight. So what I like to do is I just take a stick of lit dynamite and stick it in his back pocket on his way in, and then I don't deal with either of them. Like that's great, you know. Anyways, yes, common rules of decency. Yeah, so be open and honest about intentions. That's actually one that I've had a lot of trouble with. Like people did not. I don't feel like the continental right. Should we start calling them that? The continental right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good term. I mean, that's basically any of the elite theory, pure power politics, like elite wing theory, of things.
Yeah, we should actually make a rules for like this style presentation of like the topology of politics, something like that, where it's like we go from left to right, and we show how it is a bit of a horseshoe because the extremes is essentially the continentals tend to use the same methods on the right and the left.
Yeah.
Now, canceling, lying, cheating, killing.
And just not behaving decently, which is
not having the truth. Yeah.
I mean, I think AA's stuff, historically. So there has been a dispute recently, which echoes to my mind a dispute in the past. So AA has had disagreements with members of the Lotus Eaters. Dan on tariffs. I mean, I think, maybe some of that is broadly subsumable in that AA is actually not necessarily, pro-America in any thoroughgoing sense, whereas I think Dan is a strict economic realist.
Yeah.
Well, they had a disagreement, and it was
very pro-America in his tariff arguments.
Yeah, and they had a disagreement, and the disagreement was known publicly, and they sat down and had an unmediated conversation with one another where they hashed through the ideas, and they weren't afraid of win or loss. AA and Connor Tomlinson had disagreements about the practicalities and exigencies of 0 seats. And they sat down and had an unmediated conversation between the two of them, and expressed their differences. And, neither of these conversations did they come out necessarily reconciled or fully, agreed on it. But it was also the tenor of it is you are talking with a friend or ally, and you're willing to work it out publicly because you or believe you're on the same side. And are willing to treat in good faith around areas of disagreement.
I know where you're going with it, and I'm going to just say minute mark 1 hour and 4 minutes is where you're going to want to start. In contrast.
So in just running in the same theme, Stelios and Josh versus Carl and Connor at the time, some of the more overtly liberal, strictly English traditional liberal Lotus Eaters versus the far more post-liberal and I think to a certain extent post-rational, which is not a bad thing, post-liberal, post-rational Lotus Eaters. They had debates, which again were without moderation, but they went into 3 parts, each over an hour, just like hashing it out.
Yeah.
And one of the ways, you know, you act your role with friends and allies is, I mean, ideally you should be extending good faith to everyone except for the people who have revoked it.
Right.
Is, you know, what was at stake was the future of ideas, but it's finding the best one, and you're willing to, you know, to have it out in good faith and treat the other side like they're in good faith. So
Right.
Stelios has also been through this crucible. Stelios and AA continue to disagree about liberalism.
Right.
AA starts going after Stelios, as far as I can find in like like going through the Twitter archaeology, basically out of the blue and really hard. You know, including setting of terms in ways that Stelios wouldn't necessarily agree with. Stelios says, "Hey, let's."
In terms of what? Like terms of the debate or what? Like
the use of terms, definitions of words.
Oh,
you know,
right,
I think AA makes some assertions about Stelios's premises that that Stelios wouldn't agree with, which might be provable in a discussion.
Right. Okay.
And then I think Stelios does make mistakes here. He says, "Hey, let's have a debate," but missteps. 1, challenge you to a debate. The framing is different. 2, suggest a moderator. All of these prior conversations were unmoderated.
Right.
And that's actually generally where you want to be if you're proposing a debate, which is really just a conversation where you're interested in truth value.
Correct. Yeah.
AA's response: debates are gay. Like, okay, for someone who's done
not. Yeah, I mean that's pretty. That's the Lotus Eaters had debates though. Like you called the Lotus Eaters gay.
AA has had debates with the Lotus Eaters gang. This is you're treating someone with whom your friends and allies have a not just a close relationship but a business relationship. Like, okay, now you're tearing them down publicly.
Alex, are you committing yourself to having a moderate and like position and like are you willing to contain your emotions in this conversation? Because if you are, then I don't have to. This is bitch made behavior. What the fuck on a schoolboy? Like I don't have to fight you. I already fought somebody. Fights are gay anyway. It's like you only run away from a fight if you think you're gonna lose. Like this Americans are over here on the stand just looking. Yeah. Like come on, come on.
Well, it won. Like the dismissive attitude is like, okay, this is not acting your role. This isn't behavior that you would expect from someone who's behaving.
Conversations are an expectation. If you have a disagreement, by the way, if you are an ally or a friend, if you have a disagreement with someone, you don't get to have it in your own bubble. You do have to hash it out, or else you start moving towards the enemy camp. Because unsatisfied disagreements are just laying the groundwork for a rift. If you ever seen like a stonemason hew giant pieces of stone, it's just with a bunch of nails and he hammers them in like a little bit at a time. That's all it takes to just tear stone apart. Is just a few differences and you just sort of hammer on them a little bit at a time. So to be an ally and to be a friend, are you helping our movement? Because at some point we have a movement. You have to have a collective movement. This is why libertarians lose, is they don't have a movement. They're all fighting each other. Fighting is good internally if it's moderated and you're willing to accept someone else has won. That's the purpose of a debate, is when you lose the debate, you get to just shut up and the other guy won. And if you have a better argument, bring it. But everyone has already disagreed with you. Your point is lost. Okay, fine. I don't personally agree with it, but I'm going to vote this way. This is why the like bump stocks with Trump is like some bullshit. Is like, okay, listen, I don't agree with Trump on bump stocks. I think it was a betrayal of the Second Amendment, but everyone else seems to be okay with it. I'm going to go with it. Same thing with Epstein.
Wait, there's also there's another component to this, which is value honesty and truth. If you're having a debate or a conversation, a conversation where you and someone else are settling, a controversy or a disagreement through words, about ideas. your proper attitude is you should actually go into every debate wanting to lose, just from a strictly Darwinian sense. Because
Right.
in your intellectual life, you have accumulated the best arguments for a position, and the positions you hold are not because you believe they're perfect. It's because you believe these haven't been beaten and are unlikely to be beaten. But if there's faults, you want them exposed, and you want to incur a revision of belief properly.
I have a framing now for all of these things that we're talking about right now. And I'm going to go back to Rudyard Kipling of "to be a man." That'd be really funny is actually if we said like to adhere to these principles. These are actually the principles at which you are a man. Like the manhood is the center of this thing. And a man does not become so sentimentally attached to his own opinion that he will hold it regardless of evidence, regardless of arguments, regardless of everything. Like only a very stubborn fool would hold on to something that has been so thoroughly disproven. So yes, exactly what you're saying there is, how do you to be a man is not to fall in love with your own creations, right? Your own ideas. Like you have to be willing to have scrutiny and be wrong.
Right. Essentially you have to value truth.
Yes. So I want to reframe this as that that'd be an interesting frame, because that would also allow us to call anyone who doesn't fit into this as like you're being sub man. You're being not very man, which by the way would expose a lot of people.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of not so manly men on the right who borrow, as I think you were telling me this, was that they borrow the aesthetics of it, but they don't actually capture the essence of it.
Right. Yeah, and we may or may not be talking about one of those people now, but an important thing too is like, it's okay to refuse debates, but they're going to generally be in a few contexts.
If it's an enemy, sure, yeah.
If it's somebody who's demonstrated bad faith or violation of common rules of decency, or if it's someone that you like. There are going to be conditions where you don't think you're going to have, fruitful conversations. You could be dealing with somebody who's trying to make a good faith argument for pedophilia or something like that. But like having this conversation is really not going to move the needle because, it's obvious on the face of it. Now, it could be the AA does have that position about liberalism, but if you combine this jointly, one, sharing a stage with Stelios multiple times, and two, violating other common rules of decency in making that assertion, and then additionally, when he puts out his response or his explanation, also counter signaling that is the reason why. All of that betrays not being interested in honesty, and that you approach a conversation with fear of loss, not craving it.
Right. Be open and honest about intentions. That's been obfuscated. You could actually go through this like a checklist and be like, yeah, you're not okay. Yep. And by the way, just violating the common rules of decency puts you in the enemy category. Like you could be as friendly as you want to be, but if you don't abide by this, you're a liability because reciprocity.
Because you don't know when somebody is going to like fly off the handle like this.
That's true. But also like, imagine you have someone who's on your side. They absolutely agree with you. They've been lockstep, fantastic, but they're absolute scoundrels. I was like, the enemy is going to use them as an example all the time of why you're a scoundrel because you associate with them. The guilt by association is a real thing. And I don't know. I will speak out of turn because I'm just a dude. Carl's playing a dangerous game where he's associating with a lot of people that have bad behavior. And hopefully there were some backdoor conversations about Stelios and AA to diffuse this. Yeah. Turn this off because this is a bad look.
Yeah. And this particular thing has been, quieted down for several days, which, I don't know either of these people directly. I don't have access to what the back channels are. I would suspect there's probably a private, look, this is not becoming sort this out.
By the way, Stelios, I think, is actually probably a candidate for an American.
Sure.
Yeah. Like he's.
I think he's
decency?
deeply English liberal, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's the kind of person that
He's Greek,
could
right?
go from being Greek to being, like a member of the club in England too. He could probably go to being a member of the club in America pretty easy.
Well, America doesn't have the identity thing. That's I said in my videos that America and England agree on rights quite a bit, but identity is not something we agree on. Right. Like you can't become an Englishman other than blood, right? It's like becoming a Jew, right? It's a matriarchal line. You have to marry a Jewish woman, and then your children will be Jewish. You are not Jewish necessarily. I don't know how the rules apply. There's a lot of sects of Judaism, by the way. There's a lot of nuance in there. Anyways, to be an American, though, is like you just have to. Actually, the common rules of decency map pretty well to being an American. I'm just realizing that now. It's kind of a fun coincidence, or not. Act in your best interests of your people. Conduct yourself with dignity, appropriate levels of emotionality. Be open and honest about your intentions. People should stay out of the. There's actually kind of good rules for how to be a white hat cowboy, in one of those movies. Anyways, act your role. Yeah.
I just want to like wrap the history of this because it is worth going through.
Yeah. Go for it.
So AA suggests an alternative, which I don't think is unreasonable, which is I don't necessarily feeling like doing live debates over this. So I am going to, we'll just take turns posting response videos. Okay. That is also a reasonable way to have a public conversation. I mean, mind you, with past disagreements and conversations, you've been perfectly fine with debates. Why are you being this weird and dismissive now?
Right.
We'll just set aside what a breach debates are gay is. Post his response video. Okay. And in it, he actually starts moving through several phases and equivocating the nature and purpose of debates and saying, and what he eventually lands on is, well, look, we'll come in and have this discussion and it'll just be, like permission for our internet minions to go off and say they got victory and use it against the other. It's like, that's not the conversation between you and Stelios. That's like actually this parasocial domain that has nothing to do with the substance of the ideas or the content of the discussion. So you're actually pushing it off and claiming that it's a parasocial bad faith effort. It's like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, AA's minion. By the way, I'm gonna interject here really quick that this I don't know. Maybe I'll save it for later. Shit. Anyways. Yeah, AA tends to go for total war. It's the power theory. Is it kind of opens up the floodgates to do whatever you want to do and avoid damage in any dastardly way that you want, and to inflict damage in any dastardly way you want. And Stelios is coming out with good faith of just like, we just talk about it. No, and he's turning into this internet power thing. That's the thing is the internet minions is a power play. It's a power argument. Yeah. So bullshit.
It's a power argument that has nothing to do with principle. Now, AA goes on to explore some intellectual space. I think he strawmans Stelios somewhat and undermines it by saying, essentially, have you read my book? I understand your position already. He does make some legitimate points about, nature of democracy, liberal systems, etc. And he makes some not so on the money points. Stelios responds very generously and says, essentially, I'm going to treat everything you said in from maximal charity. Stelios goes on to present some of his arguments, some of which I think land, some of which I think are imperfectly argued, or are weaker than they could be.
I think he's probably pretty busy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, I would actually love to see the actual conversation and have them both at, their total attention and focus in this because, these responses have actually left me with, oh, yeah, I do want to see how this plays out, just for clarification's sake, especially if AA says he knows these things as well as he claims to.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem.
I want to highlight. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, here's the problem with the internet minions is that they will turn on you in a moment. Often, not saying this is the case, although I suspect it is. If you go into a debate and you bring in all of your minions and then you get your ass handed to you really hard, your minions will turn on you, and your lol cowification will be complete. Like all of your fans convert into lol cows, like or convert into lol milkers or lol dairy maids. What do you call the other end of the lol cow? Lol lol extractors, lol milkers,
lactose tolerant.
Anyways, the minion. This is the thing: is the minions will rise up and kill you. They'll tear you apart if they sense that you're weak, because they will. What they're doing is they rot. Okay, so here's how the parasocial stuff happens, especially with like I would consider academic agent to be a form of shock jock. Right? He says shocking things. He goes after shocking truths. I really like a lot of the shocking truths, by the way, but I'm not emotionally invested in them like the minions are. The thing is, they're getting high on the edge, right? I almost said edging, but like they're getting high on it. Now, the problem is if the edge comes for you, you'll make just as good a food as your victims were before.
Right.
It's the vultures who eat the dying lion after a lifetime of caribou carcass. They don't care. So yeah.
There's you can cultivate a group of people that need you to be pushing boundaries, and the second you temporize upon careful reflection and hashing things out, you're just cattle. I mean, there's several joint violations of the common rules of decency here. One of which is like, we haven't even talked about the tenor broadly of AA's video, which is like Stelios is again goes to great lengths to do all of the maximum charity, maximum good faith interpretation of your remarks. AA is extremely dismissive in his videos.
By the way, we're gonna do a reaction of this. I don't know if it's gonna be live or not, and even if you're not there, we will do a reaction of at least this back and forth, because this is fascinating. And I've not. By the way, I've been keeping myself a virgin of this. I got virgin ears. I will come at it, and I will be maximally the opposite of how I feel, because that's how you get to the truth. Is you have to like make an avatar inside of your mind that disagrees with you completely. So I'll be trying to be pro AA of like, and then anti Stelios, which is hard to be anti Stelios because he's just so nice,
right?
If he was not,
he's a picture of like, even if we were at total ideological disagreement, just based on his personal conduct, the worst this would ever be his opposition.
That's correct. He would never be an enemy. Yeah, enemies are for destroying. Opposition is for arguing with. Actually, opposition
make you better.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, and this is the thing too. You wouldn't even comport yourself this way toward opposition.
Right. Like, why you'd think the academic agent could feel that he could become sharper from this argument. Stelios is a pretty chill dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk to him at some point. I mean, just to highlight the point you made too about the minions, audience/civilians/bystanders should stay out of the crossfire. You do not urge your people to attack the enemy.
Yes. AA explicitly pulls in audiences into the domain of combat.
What a fucking faggot. I'm sorry. That's just like, what is this prissy behavior?
Listen. So here's the thing. This would be like at least for me, an easily forgivable blip if this weren't a pattern of behavior. Now, mind you, it's two instances that I know of that were largely publicly visible.
He's a bad actor. Carl. I'm not telling Carl what to do, but I tell Carl what he should do is cut ties. This is bad actor behavior. This is bullshit. Even if they agree with you 100%.
This is somebody that will bring shame and disgrace to your cause because of their unmanful conduct, and that they're clearly not upholding other tenets like honesty and truth, or acting your role, or even treating opposition in good faith.
Correct.
Like, if he's got this constructed in his head that Stelios is opposition, he still wouldn't be acting like this. This is treating somebody who's at worst your opposition, but is far more likely your friend and ally, like an enemy, in a totally unprovoked way.
Like if we had someone, by the way, who was opposed to us that was decent, like we had a viewer on here, Libs for Life, who was like, I'm sorry, Libs for Life, if you're listening to this, but it's just like, we need a higher IQ in terms of the argumentation. Your IQ is probably fine, the argumentation there was very much lacking, or I would have invited you on. I need good argumentation from the opposition, but the problem is the opposition is kind of bereft of merit at this point.
Right.
So there's like, it's kind of like you're just shouting at a wall. The thing is, conservatives are just shouting at a corpse. Like it's dying. There's an old man who's dying, and we're just like, you are wrong. It's like he's already dying. He's like, their approval rating is 20%. According to Trump, they're going to lose like 100 seats. We're going to remove mail-in. I have never seen such an ass whooping in American history. Has there ever been a more giant ass whooping in American history than what's potentially not necessarily now?
Richard Nixon.
Well, that was a lot of votes, but like I'm talking about the rules, the norm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That your opposition is not just defeated but destroyed because they're absolutely spent all their capital and cultural cachet and are left utterly desiccated, not just through your efforts, but also because of their total and absolute failure.
They've opened up the lawfare stuff, which means that Trump. Everybody just replies with the Trump mugshot. Anytime it was like Act Blue gets investigated, Letitia James gets investigated, Gavin Newsom gets investigated. Anybody, it's like it's open. And the thing is, it's happening so much more often now. It's like we're just going to use lawfare 100%.
Well,
we're gerrymandering 100%.
The Democrats also touted for years like peaceful transfer of power and like, norms and not persecuting, past governments. It's like, it's provable not only that they did that when Trump lost in his second election, it's provable that they did that when he won in the first one.
Yeah, which is why Trump was like way behind the blinders. I bet you even if Trump doesn't win the 2028, he's probably going to be the power behind the throne.
I think he will probably be well into his dotage at that point. I mean, this seems like a guy of boundless energy, but like, let's be real.
Yeah,
he's going to be in his 80s, and his grandkids are coming to the age of adulthood. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Pursuant to an old conversation here, like using viewers, it's like, howdly doodly, you got a lot of weight to lift. Okay, man, we're gonna throw you in AA. It's just like sending one man against an army. No, like getting your. By the way, it's emotionally negligent to get your audience involved in the stuff. You have a parasocial relationship. By the way, also with the conservative cause in England, that your viewers are desperate for answers. This is where it gets to not be funny.
No, yeah, because you're destroying the narrative and you're destroying the appearance of a cohesive political force.
You're giving people hope in a thing that might never happen too. It's like you're getting them wound up. All right, so listen, the continental conservatism is wanting such radical change that it's actually revolutionary, right? Okay. Are you going to lead the revolution? Are you going to start lighting the fuses? I doubt it. You're going to get them all losing their minds and spazzing out on X and alienating themselves. Like when you give people a message, you have to think about how much am I socially alienating them? How much danger am I putting them in with the speech codes in my country? Which, by the way, I also fucking advocate for. What am I cutting them off from getting help from foreign governments that might have my best interests at heart? Right? He is setting them up for failure. I think it's tremendously negligent. I think Academic Agent is being horrendously negligent with his audience. And so is anybody who's doing this continental European conservatism where it's all about ethnos, because it's not viable. It is not viable. Humpty Dumpty's busted. All the king's horses cannot put him back together again. All the king's men. Nothing is you cannot return America to like 1790 Alien Exclusion Act. Okay. We're not a white nation. That has been long neglected. I don't think we're like a white nation per se, but I do think you can go back to Alien Exclusion. Well, if you could go back to the Alien Exclusion Act, then I could go back to the Mormon Extermination Act because neither of them were repealed.
Fair enough.
Now we doing sovereign citizen shit. It's obvious that we ignore laws. I can't get a blowjob in Maryland. I'm not allowed to take a shower while I'm naked in Florida. We do ignore laws all the time. It's about the temperament of the people. And right now, the temperament of the normies is what you go to the grocery store and talk to talk to people in the grocery store. That's what the normies believe. If you go in there and says like, we're a white nation, right? The clerk, the checkout lady's gonna look at you like you're fucking crazy, because you are fucking crazy. If that ship has sailed, Humpty, it's all gone, right? Like,
but there's Eric Vogelin makes a great point that that all governments, like essentially the structure of affairs that governs a society in the long run, if it's persistent, is representative of its people. Like it or not, the Nazi regime was representative of the German people.
Correct.
And now the 100% Euro cucked German government is representative of its people.
The people. Exactly.
It's a sort of long run way of saying that you get what you deserve. And political movements rely on that tacit understanding that you are representative to make changes, because you simply can't go without buy-in. Your orders need to be effectuated. And what you're doing in political change, and like what I think the English and the British are involved in, is saying, come on, guys, we deserve better than this.
Correct. Well, and it's where you want to go. Like, it's a revolutionary versus incremental change, right? It's appealing to. Also, by the way, England or the UK is the worst case scenario because they have strictly enemy government. I think that anything they want to do positively, they're going to strike down. It's not even like have their own different moral framework, but
the UK entrenched elite, like their deep state or whatever, is actually way worse than the US one was.
Yes,
and the US one was really bad.
Okay, so I had an interaction, not with Callum, but I just retweeted him. But he was saying like, the English, the Anglos, they're very pro-traditional. It's like, motherfucker, you've had the most revolutionary force in the planet for like 200 years. Even that Pascal guy agreed. Is like, you guys are the core of woke. This idea that we have some great Anglo ethnos that loves our own people and cares about them was like, dude, the enemy is in the house. Like, the phone call coming from inside. You guys, who let all these migrants in? It was your own people. Like, you guys largely don't even get along with your own women. Like, they'll talk about how they're like some master race and like, oh, everything would be great if the migrants were gone. It's like the ladies would do something else because for some reason they hate you. I don't know why, but like the middle class, what they call the middle class there, and definitely the upper class, and a lot of the women just hate hardworking regular Anglo dudes. I don't know why. I think
I reckon it is a class signal thing, at least.
Well, that's the problem with a class-based society, though, is like these classes are no longer acting their role. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. So
Well, that's also one of the big problems too, I think, is the extension of, like, it really cannot be understated how, because the UK had Labour governments for a long time and they did a bunch of things that really fucked them up. Like, the tax rate in Britain is such that essentially everybody makes £35,000 a year at most. And like, just their tax structure is structured in a way that forcibly economically equilibrates everybody unless you're insanely successful. And those people are leaving. The British actually have equalized this social class thing so much, but also it really cannot be understated that despite decades of government, they were revolutionarily transformed by the Tony Blair government. And one of the things he did that's unforgivable is the mass extension of college, like the American federally guaranteed student loans and stuff like that, like college for everyone. And like, not everyone's going to college. You're diluting the job market. You're diluting technical expertise. You are creating a bunch of highly educated people with high expectations for whom there is no market. You are creating a crisis of fake elites and disrupting ordinary relations between people by creating a massive class of disinherited pseudo elites. This is a fucking terrible thing to do to your civilization. It is insane.
This is your point,
and that's why you have this class resentment toward the working class. Partially,
this is a part of your. I think you mentioned it to me. I'll let you rephrase it in case I get it wrong. Okay, but it's a part of having an American system where you can be anything you want to be. There is some resentment if you fail to meet what you think is your potential, right?
Right.
The counter to that, I would say, is that there's a lot of American working. I wouldn't even call them working poor. They're like working, doing fine, I guess. They just don't have a lot of stuff. They're just totally fine with it. Like a lot of Americans are okay with it. And I think the university education kind of distorts your perspective and makes you think you're better than where you came up from.
No, it cultivates your mimetic desire without necessarily to a much greater extent than it cultivates your actual capabilities, and you wind up in an entirely different class and category of what your desires are, because essentially you're psychologically and spiritually keeping up with the Joneses, and it leaves you miserable.
Hey, do you want to go back to Aaron McIntyre a little bit? Apparently, Howley Doodley says here that the sports thing.
Yeah. I'll just close the loop on AA and say, just obliquely, I won't go through it in great detail. AA had a similar level of, freaking out at Sitch and Adam. Now, Sitch and Adam.
Oh yeah, they called him a quackademic agent.
So where they fall in this whole, layers of how you're relating to different people, I think at the time Sitch and Adam were at worst firmly like opposition or friendly opposition. They do a lot of response and react videos. They did a 2-for-1, I think, reacting to like a Thought Slime video or something like that. And they reacted to an academic agent video where he's freaking out about like lick the tomboy abs. And
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So academic agent puts out what is objectively like a bad take, going off the handle about like what's actually some really, really mild like expression of sexual preference, calling it degeneracy and sort of just being like having this emotionally super overcharged rant. They go through it.
You went all Elijah Schaefer on that thing.
Yeah. This line of argumentation is bad and dumb, and you look really silly doing.
People want to fuck what they want to fuck, and as long as it's a man and a woman, that's, by the way, man and a woman, whatever permutation of that is. Okay, listen, we all watched that Futurama episode, Death by Snoo Snoo. We've all talked about it. We all thought about it. It's okay. Whatever you listen, if you can find that, that's great. I'm not going to judge anybody. If it's a man and a woman, it's like that's. By the way, like.
Everybody's had a short king friend who winds up with a giantess.
Yeah, dude. Listen, if I find myself like a 7-foot-tall Numenorian, it is what it is. Okay, don't tell me I'm degenerate. Okay, so yes, that's a stupid.
So take. He has this bad take, and the bad take gets a treatment that a bad take deserves.
Yeah.
AA proceeds to freak out, torch all these bridges. I'm not going to try and link to it here, but he does a response much in the same style because he refuses to go on he freaks out, refuses to go on Sitch and Adam's show when they ask him, and their interactions, escalate upwards to more and more hostile. Sitch and Adam were definitely participatory in the escalation process, but he posts this response video, just about an hour and a half long, violates the same class of common rules of decency violations. But like the insane thing is the absolute, like, conduct yourself with dignity and appropriate levels of emotionality per the occasion. This is unhinged. Like, it would be one thing if you had a Twitter feud, but like, and I'm pretty sure the version I found was Adam Friend had listed it. I'm pretty sure AA delisted it at some point because it's like AA's response made him look 10 times worse than his original bad take.
Dude, he's a liability, man. If you cannot,
this is like you have somebody who is clearly just like a massive backlash waiting to happen, and like has not controlled the aspects of themselves where they are going to make your cause look like a laughing stock.
Yeah, that's the problem. The liability is, you're a liability when the people on your side have to answer to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to take another bio break. But yeah, I'll follow along. I want to hear your concluding remarks and then, get back on the train.
Back on the because I would like to go back to Aaron McIntyre, but yes, go back on the train.
Sure.
So this is the part where I act completely unhinged and just say what I think. I think AA is tremendously intimidated or okay, so merits first, okay? Everyone comes from a good place. I do believe this, okay? Even if that good place is, well, that's what I want. I actually don't think desire is a bad thing. I think it's what we do at desire that's a bad thing. Where desire takes us. Like, to desire is not a sin. However, it's where it takes you. That's the sin, I think. To desire is human. To want more than what you have. And what AA wants is he wants a UK that is free of American control, I suppose. Maybe he would say degeneracy. The problem is that once you become an anti-culture, once you become anti-something, you start to lose yourself. This is something I've observed, by the way. This is why I don't believe in I don't believe in victimhood, even if you are an actual victim. This is why I hate victimhood, even if you are a legitimate victim who deserves a grievance. You cannot give in to victimhood. Because one thing that victimhood does is that it becomes anti-perpetrator, right? So what did I do when I started this little spiel here? Is I said that I made a statement that was reconciliatory to AA, despite the fact that I think he's an enemy, and I do think he's an enemy, and to him should be done what is done with enemies, right? Ostracism. The victimhood would be to not see the virtue in your enemy. He does not see the virtue in America. He considers it to be an immoral force that is tainting his beautiful Great Britain. He doesn't see any of England's or Britain's agency in that corruption. He doesn't see any of himself in his enemy, which is, by the way, the main part of empathy. Empathy. All right, take my Christian hat off, put my atheist hat on. What is the evolutionary role of empathy? It's so you can learn without suffering those consequences. Without empathy for your enemy, you end up repeating their mistakes. All right, and the problem is, if you repeat the mistakes of the projection in your mind, right? There's a projection in AA's mind of what America is, because most of these people have never visited America, and even if they visited America, they never lived in America. I would say you have to be in America for like 10 years before you understand it. I mean, I'm 36 years old. I'm still like working. I have to like rub some neurons together like defibrillator paddles, right? Like, to figure out what the hell an American even is. I've been here for 36 years. The victimhood mindset that he comes with restricts him from having the empathy necessary to learn from America. All right. The victimhood mindset he has makes America the enemy. It's the same stuff you see on Twitter where it's like Jews this and Jews that. Okay. By the way, here's a spoiler for anyone who's listening. The reason why everyone's blaming Jews and sees Jews everywhere is because there's the James Damore memo. If you've read the James Damore memo, you know that a very slight shift in the Gaussian distribution means that at the very extremes, they're overrepresented, right? So if you see like an IQ shift, a very small IQ shift, you're going to see a ton of Jews involved in a bunch of things that require intellectual pursuits. What requires an intellectual pursuit? Well, first off, it's networking, business relationships, technology, those sorts of things. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of them there, okay? You should expect that. Then there's a Pareto distribution where it's a very small amount of those who are at the top, a very small amount of even the top, who ends up dominating all of those fields, okay? So there you go. The English used to be actually at the forefront of this, and now they're not anymore. It is what, times change, okay? Maybe it'll be somebody else someday. Anyways, this victimhood mindset causes him to blame America for England's problems. He seeks them out. It was America that made us woke. It was America that destroyed our economy. It was America that did this. And this is my main point, even if it's 100% true, you cannot put all the responsibility on the perpetrator. You will lose your ability to even fathom how you can reverse your circumstances. You rob yourself of agency, because agency first requires vision. If your conception is that this happens with Black America too. This happens with every group that's a victim. Whether it's Native Americans blaming the white man, whether it's Black people, also blaming the white man, whether it's black people blaming the Jews, whether it's white people blaming the Jews, whether it's academic agent blaming the Jews or the American white man, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You lose your agency. You lose the conception at which you had something to do with it. Because now they're not asking themselves, how can we, if you say that we let ourselves, all right, like let's say you get punched at school. You can either say, yeah, also bitter is never a good look. It just makes you look like a punk, and then which drives away allies. Allies are really important. By the way, you cannot save yourself. You cannot save yourself. By the way, America, the one thing America hates more than anything else in the world is other Americans. Like if Americans hate other Americans the most, we fight other Americans the most. This is an absolute Thunderdome in a lot of ways, right? If you tell Americans that you were attacked by Americans, Americans will probably be like, that sounds terrible. Let's help you out. You know, that's why we spend so much trouble helping all these countries that are banana republics. Because there was an argument that the CIA screwed with them, probably did. And now we're trying to like give them a free pass. Now, obviously they abuse it, but like if England was able to phrase this as like the previous regime of America had screwed us over horrendously. And we're trying to build back. We're trying to make things better, right? I almost said build back better. Don't worry about that. You would probably actually be able to get the support of Americans, but you'd also have a vision of how to overcome what you've done. America, the USA loves a redemption story. We love a comeback kid, right? We love it. We love it. The propensity for academic agent to peddle in blame and victimhood is just academic agent peddling in blame, victimhood, ethnic identity, and also resisting the inevitable change of the American empire. Like the American empire is going to impress itself upon Europe, whether Europe likes it or not. I don't see, other than a complete divorce where they cut ties. But I don't see England, the English conservatives, the English right, making it without American support. I wonder what would happen if Americans just pulled out, even just take Lotus Eaters. What happens if every American just canceled their subscription right now? Will they even be around? I don't know.
I mean, I think England has the opportunity, and I've said this in the past, to do what I think they should have done with Brexit and failed to do.
Correct.
Which is just go full Enoch Powell or Charles de Gaulle and just say
we're Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah. But they could have just said we're going to go our own way. Like we know where the world hegemon is and stuff.
Right. I see.
And we're not going to chase after that. We are going to get our own house in order, and then maybe we'll see what kind of power we can be. That's a respectable and totally admirable thing to do. If you are obsessed with the mantle of hegemon, you're never going to do what you need to do to make yourself respectable to yourself or others.
When you say the mantle of hegemon is like holding on to the power they once had, or like holding on, like what do you mean by that?
Or just like, and this is part of why I was talking about, the Continentals and why they're so obsessed with pure power is essentially, you have moved the domain of agency just to the sovereign. It's how can there be gods and I bear and if there are gods, how can I bear not being one of them? And that seems to almost be AA's kind of political attitude,
Right. Yeah. How can I? There's an outsized amount of power that a lot of these right-wing influencers seem to think they have, and then when they don't get what they want, they, as you said, piss and shit and moan.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think part of that is the negative effects of social media, just like we see it affect teen girls' mental health in preposterously bad ways. I think the parasociality is particularly dangerous to people who have the attitude or disposition of an elite theorist.
Right. And here's the thing is that because they don't feel like they have any agency unless they are elite. They actually feel like they're wasting their time, so they have to go big or go home. Yeah, and I remember Aaron McIntyre like bragging that JD Vance follows them. I was like, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right. I follow loads of people I don't agree with.
Right. And also like so far the woke right, the ethno right has been attacking Indians and multiracial marriages. And I think that probably is, I bet you JD is radicalized at this point against it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were particularly right in your video that premiered today that there's like, yeah, the Indians are missing their turn to be in the barrel, and that's creating, among other things, social problems. But it's not that, it's not that it's like being anti-Indian per se. It's that you're not joining the tribe properly. You're coming in here and getting the rewards, but you're not signaling membership in the tribe, and you're counter signaling other tribal loyalty.
Yes, exactly.
And being married to somebody like Usha, who was instrumental for him being fully incorporated into the tribe as he switched, social classes, like that's somebody who's part of the tribe.
Right, exactly. Marriage is a part of a way of getting into the tribe. Here's the problem is that now I see people questioning whether or not JD is still in the tribe, which is like silly to me, but I know he just grunts like, ugh. It's like maybe he's an elite now. Maybe JD's an elite. He's not one of us. Like, fucking hell. Like, fuck.
I'm pretty sure he wrote a whole book about this.
Like dude, what do you guys want, man? Do you want him like making moonshine on the White House? Okay, that actually does sound kind of badass. But like, what do you want, man? He's gonna become an elite. Like, you want power, you got to go through these institutions because there is something to these institutions that make it happen. Right.
Well, also the institutions used to select for quality, and you don't graduate casts and go on to be not a pseudo elite but hyper successful unless you're still demonstrating the quality that's selected for lawfully.
Right. This is the crab in the bucket thing you see with a lot of lower class Americans, and they tend to get screwed over by that. Yeah. I ask myself if guys like Nick Fuentes or Aaron McIntyre or an academic agent, like if they had 5 minutes with the president or the soon-to-be president, JD Vance, I was like, would you have anything to even talk about? Right. Because if you don't,
right. Is it just going to be theory, or is it going to be something of substance?
Well, also, is he just going to throw you out of his office because he thinks you're a crackpot?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because like Donald Trump would just be like, slap his desk, like, get out. As soon as you start talking about interracial marriage as being a bad thing, like, all right, out of my office. No, we're done. Oh, wait. Like, America is a white nation. Go to the White House and talk about America being a white nation and see how long that you're going to be thrown out in a minute. No one in any position of power believes that. No great congregation of the populist believes that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get. Listen, if you want to believe that, go join Richard Spencer on his like Twitter tirades, or Nick Fuentes or something like that. Like, these are just Twitter personality levels of political influence, which don't affect the polls, as far as I can see.
Right. Well, there's also proxy selection. Like the indicator you're taking can be a more or less lossy proxy. And I mean, historically, like, America being white is it's just historically who wound up being members of the tribes. And there was periods of active selection and passive selection for that. A lot of it goes back to like, well, the country was mostly white people, and, that propagates forward in time, even as recently as the 80s. You have, almost 90% of Americans being white in some descriptor or another. There's like you're looking for adios howdily doodly. You're mostly looking for, who's the carriers of the flame, who's a member of the tribe and really believes in it. And just by dint of demographics of the people you have, winds up being a lot of white people. It's foreseeable that it's not necessarily always that way, but as long as those people are the carriers of the tribe, like, why would you ever select against them?
Oh, exactly. You wouldn't objectively select against them, but the problem is if you start selecting for them, you start losing the quality in case circumstances changes. And I would say that the definition of white, one of my contentions against the definition of white is that is scope creep significantly.
Yes.
So in other words, if this was antiquity, we would, in 50 years, will we consider Indians to be white? Of course not, but the argument holds that like people who were not considered white before are considered white now. Like Italians were not white. Eastern Europeans were not considered white. They're considered Slavics. Like eventually it just becomes an arbitrary skin color. I would rather a bunch of people from 20,000 immigrants from Singapore versus 20,000 immigrants from Albania. You make your choice. I pick the Singapore because the Albanians are the ones that are also like smugglers and terrorists. Well, how about Croatians? Because there's also a lot of Muslims in Russia and the eastern area there, right? It's like the racial divide is correlative, but it is lossy. It is a lossy proxy to what has been access to a compatible culture, right? And the East Asians usually defy this because East Asians are fairly compatible in Western American liberal culture, despite the fact that they're not necessarily Western liberal and white, right? Like they fit in okay, they get along, they do their bit, and they also know. By the way, one thing I'll say, like as my dad is an Eastern Eastern Asian immigrant, is that they know that they're a minority, and they also are conscious that if white people get really mad, they're all going to die. So they go out of their way to be really nice and fit in, and they'll integrate and marry in and all that stuff. Which is why I don't look Asian. I'm half Northern English.
There's a way you comport yourself, especially when you're attempting to, you've decided you want to join the tribe. Like there is a way you comport yourself. Yeah,
we're subjugative. We subjugate ourselves to the tribe, whereas other ones who are skipping the barrel, as we say, are trying to dominate from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the main issue. The problem though is that you start getting guys like you want to start talking about Aaron McIntyre. This is one I'm not.
Yeah, let's pivot into McIntyre.
Yeah, so we've talked about the ethnos of America. We've talked about continental philosophies. How is Aaron McIntyre? How does his philosophy differ from that of traditional American philosophy? In terms of
near as I can figure, McIntyre's really only serious major political influence is James Burnham. Everyone else is Italian elite theory.
Oh, okay.
All
in for Burnham.
It's wait. If we return to the preamble thing, just doing the Haidt style, like moral foundations, he's not really interested in the liberty thing unless it's the liberty to do what he wants, and puts essentially all the agency on the sovereign. Just like AA does, and just in the continental style. I mean, I got his book because I heard some very good reviews of it, but like if you've ever heard him speak, there's essentially nothing new in the total state. And even then, a lot of the total state is essentially just citing the works of elite theorists or other similar intellectual movements.
By the way,
and saying the total state essentially does this. Also, we want to seize the way to, have a society that we want is to seize the apparatus.
I see. So
I want to have the whip hand.
Right. That's why it's very authoritarian and not liberative.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of funny because America right now might end up standing as a counterexample, which is going to blow their minds. And if I know philosophers, based on my experience learning about philosophers, they don't like to change their minds when the real life comes and just completely blows it away. So I wonder what AA and Aaron McIntyre would do. Like we have a ton of elites in America. We actually have a massive number of elites that are just waiting in the wings. Like like in 2015, we had a random New York real estate developer decide he wants to throw his hat in for president, and it's completely changed the country. And he was just the right guy at the right time. And he wanted to do it for a long time, but we have a lot of elites in this nation. So
yeah, well, we have a surplus of very talented people who are either, heavily discouraged from, expressing themselves politically, or actively selected against in employment, in the elites selecting apparatus, which mostly involves going through college and indoctrination,
right.
Or people who simply say, most bang for my buck is actually in private industry. And that's where I'm going to express my capacity, which is like, I think by and large, you kind of want in any healthy society. But it's not necessarily that, that's where my biggest return is. That's where my biggest return is. And I'm basically shut out of doing anything else.
Well, yeah. So the problem with the young politician thing, this is why I don't harbor on having like younger politicians. It's better if you made your money independently, in my mind. Because then you're not worried about the money whatsoever. Also, you've proven that you're competent. Also, you're not trying to make a career out of this. Like, to Trump's credit, if he had his way, he would have only been in politics for 8 years. This extra 4 years was just kind of imposed on him by the 2020 election. Like he'd be golfing right now, having a good old time. I'm thankful that he had the 4 years off because I think it's radicalized him in a lot of ways and made him
because original Trump 2.0 would not have been nearly the same as we're getting now.
No, he's going ham. This man's going like he's gonna die. Like he's going as if he's gonna die tomorrow, which is hell yeah.
Well, anyways, and he's surrounded by people who were put in that do or die position. Like, oh man, this is not just like friendly disagreement. This is full on adversarial destruction. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., on and on and on.
Yeah, these people have lost. And they've been attacked by the media too. The reputation destruction has been there. So, yeah, the elite theory stuff falls apart because this is buoyed entirely by the people. Like the Trump rallies have been keeping him alive. I think, like that has been his lifeline.
Like physically alive.
A little bit, yeah. I think it keeps him wanting to go. It makes him decide he's going to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, my college president was in his 80s, and he was still primary educator, still taught the entire poli-sci curriculum. And he's like, yeah, this makes me feel young. This makes life feel vibrant.
That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. So he lives off of his populist movement, which is important to have. Yeah, you have elites, but the elites live off their populist movement. And if you can cultivate that, they'll keep you going, and they'll support you no matter what, too. Unless you are the actor of your own betrayal. If someone accuses you of betrayal, that's one thing. But if you are like the actor of your own betrayal, that's another.
Right.
Like all the stuff that Trump supporters had to power through to get Trump to the White House was insane. Like the grab her by the pussy stuff, way out of the realm of decency. But like we're like, whatever, we'll overlook it.
Right. Well, it's also the difference between like vice and crimes that Americans tend to be like kind of tight on certain categories of crimes and kind of not on vice.
That's part of my video that I put out today was that Americans are about laws, but they're not really that much about rules. Like we're okay with breaking rules, but not laws. That's probably about right. Because I was having trouble expressing that. And I was like, I think that's actually about right, is that we don't mind breaking vice as long as you're in control of yourself somewhat.
Yeah.
And somewhat repentant. But like if you break the law, then you got to accept your punishment, right? Whereas, so how does this relate back to Aaron McIntyre, right? Like, what is his? I mean,
he's essentially espousing a political value system that's not compatible with the way Americans conceive of themselves or would organize themselves absent the circulation of this hostile elite.
Right.
One of the things about Americans, like there is a real question of, okay, are Americans still in their heart of hearts free enough to be effectively self-governing and self-actualizing? That's a real question that you can take on. But our political order and our political philosophy is essentially geared around outside of like with the exception of certain constraints that make the maintenance of the social order, tranquility, justice, common defense, general welfare unsustainable, like certain branches of bad conduct where you need hard rules to govern them and exclude them. By and large, we've experienced in the English style that if people are left to do their own things and they're self-organized, like they'll do well. They'll do really, really well. And we specifically fought our like revolution, although I think you characterized it as somewhat reactionary, which I kind of agree with. We characterized our Declaration of Independence of like, hey, these are the rules, and you've egregiously broken them and sabotaged our ability to self-determine, according to the customary settlement of the English people. This ain't right, so we're going to go our own way.
Yeah. The difference between laws and rules, like laws are a thing that are the beyond the pale. Typically, rules are like social regulations. And the thing is about Christians is that you're allowed to screw up. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're supposed to get right eventually. But if you start regulating behaviors, basic behaviors, you've lost the plot. Like it's like prohibition.
Because they're no longer morally good. They're just coerced into doing what you want.
Right. So establishing
this all agency lies in the sovereignty situation. You're legislating, a moral order, but the fact of the matter is almost no one that you govern is moral anymore. Communism has this problem also. You can say whatever you want about its moral visions, which are obviously bad. But it puts such tight constraints on, like, you're not transforming the nature of man like Marx wanted. You're just coercing everybody. And, they'll do what you want for a period. They'll probably find ways around it, but it's essentially because their society is no longer moral because of the moral order that you apply to them. They're not allowed to be anymore. So can you complain when they don't do what you want or undermine it?
Well, then you have to legislate further and further and further. That's the problem with elite theory, I suppose, is that since it robs the populism of its agency, it then sets up a framework for them to become fake moral, right? When you rob someone of agency, you rob them of morality, and if you rob them of morality, you become low trust. Oddly enough, elite theory is kind of what would turn America into a third world country by that logic. Yeah.
Yes. Now there is a totally fair and valid counterpoint, which is that American political reality is not fully reconciled, and there are in fact criticisms that you can make of how it orders itself. One of which is democracy. That democracy is inherently totalitarian because it derives its legitimacy from the will of the people. Therefore, anything that the people choose to exert their will on is the rightful domain of the political in the pure power sense. So essentially all of life becomes purely political, and this contravenes secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Operating in a democratic society essentially brings everything into the political domain and makes liberty essentially contingent on the will of the people being not probing enough to infringe on this area. I mean, I think one of the justified constraints of American political affairs right now is not that we may need a king or whatever, but that popular franchise is like universal franchise is a really bad idea. People hearing that like repeal the 19th and but that wasn't the first infringements we made. It was also on, property ownership and property requirements and also age, which was certain indicators of like you have the capacity to govern your affairs well enough to be, you know, a
Right.
man of import in your community. And also it doubles as voter ID because, you know, who owns this land is
Right.
checkable.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is that if you try to repeal any of these things, that's why I don't like the return stuff. That's why it's Humpty Dumpty. You can't put it
Yep.
back together again. Is that if you try to do this stuff, you will become a revolutionary force,
Mhm.
which becomes, to me, extremely destructive.
Right.
Repeal the 19th is like a funny meme. Not going to happen. Not ever going to happen.
Unmitigated feminine influence, particularly with like overt feminist ideology coming in, is corrosive to social order.
Correct.
It's super destructive. But, you know, does that mean you should rescind franchise from all women? No. You know, it just means that there's a heavily woman-centric ideology that's also extremely anti-responsibility.
Well,
You know, and what you should do, like, honestly, the best new thought, I think it's a little bit underbaked, but I'd love to see people seriously explore is a Heinleinian franchise where it's ordeal based. Because you need something absent the removal of the property requirement, which is also heavily gameable if we were to try it again now.
Yeah.
You know, you need something to show that people have skin in the game and have the right attitude to actually care.
Well, you know, what's funny now is that the system as it is at the moment is actually, to get a bit abstract on you, is that it's, don't imagine that individual voters are individual voters. Okay. Imagine that individual voters are actually just terrain to be conquered.
Mm-hmm.
So who has, and this is where I start like going back and saying like, let's remove agents, like remove the concept of agency. I'm flexible like this. Democracy at the moment is who has memetic control.
Right.
And that's what
it's also possible
land.
for it to graduate to strictly sectarian, like racial control and stuff like that, which, like,
and it has.
It's not graduating.
That's already been happening. And
but
we're
like,
seeing
it's really bad. You don't want to be there. I mean, it's memetic control, and this is also, I think you're right that the predominant mode is memetic control. And I think this is actually one of the other reasons why democracy is immoral, is that universal franchise is actually taking advantage of people. Giving people the vote and then moving them into that battlefield is taking advantage of them.
I've seen that suffragette argument actually against the universal suffrage, is that they would become a class that is pandered to and manipulated for political control. That's not a video that I have on my horizon, but it's one that my wife actually requested, because I brought up the anti-suffragette argument, and that was one of them. We're seeing right now late stage black identity, like sectarian voting, though, and maybe that's one of the conflicts that America actually is able to dominate. We'll see how the years go, because some populations, no matter what, are going to be sectarian. I would consider it revolutionary to remove the franchise from these people, right? Remove the franchise from irresponsible people. The thing is, they should be represented, and I think maybe America is made better when politicians take them into account.
Yeah.
In terms of their politics, because to shut them out of politics entirely is to truly make them into a second-class citizen. It's now the problem is that they're pandered to and just given free stuff. Right. Maybe we're beyond that. The Republican thing has always been about maximizing agency for black people, and that might end up happening maybe in our lifetimes. We've seen crazy stuff happen, like the repeal of Roe v. Wade. So I'm like, I'm not gonna. And then the thing is, the liberation of DC is another weird red pill for a lot of.
Liberation of DC is a big deal, because I think what you do is, the answer is not withdraw. Yeah, the answer is not withdraw. The answer is not withdraw suffrage from blacks. It's to make the conditions where, like, reinstantiation of responsibility as a cultural and societal norm within taking advantage of communities is possible again. It's got some things that are not going to be popular. One of which is enforcing the law, and enforcing the law consistently. Will this have disparate racial impacts? Yeah, probably. but that's not because it's racist. It will have disparate racial impacts because the problems are not evenly spread over the racial groups in America. And if you admit already that they act in sectarian ways, then it's not surprising that there's splits there. Enforce the law and remove the people that make these communities unlivable. Like you can remove agency at a governmental political level or at a philosophical level. You can also remove agency by just making people's circumstances untenable and their ability to govern their own future and pursue their prospects impossible, because some asshole is always robbing them or shit like that, or law enforcement is just not consistent, that you don't get due process because of the criminals. So enforcing the law is one, and then remove marriage to the state as an option.
So I've derived, by the way, all the criticisms of liberalism that I've heard. I usually come down to the two things of like, stop giving people free money and start enforcing law. Like if you can enforce law and stop giving people free money, all these criticisms kind of go away.
Yeah.
On the per case basis.
But they certainly do, because Americans are broadly still philosophically, I mean, there may be an actual capability question, but Americans, I think, are still broadly like a kind of people that can self-govern.
Yes,
our culture, our tribe, our norms, and our ideas are, if you remove the restraints, we'll just go back to figuring this shit out.
Exactly. Which is why I'm not actually against like black identitarianism, and I'm not against black sectarianism either. But the thing is, I am, again, to maximize moral agency and maximize agency, period. If you are a politician trying to make it, okay, instead of trying to remove the franchise of others so that you don't have to work with them, you need to use your agency and figure out how to win them over despite it. Right? Like Trump won the majority of white women. That's actually pretty hard. So all of a sudden, like, you can reach people. If you just give it up and say like, well, they're always going to hate me, well, then you're not going to get them. You need to be a showman. This is the American way, is you do things that are absolutely impossible. You should do things that are so amazingly impressive that other people are going to think it's a hoax. Like whenever I hear like Dan, by the way, whenever like Dan from the Lotus Eaters is like, I think the moon landing is a hoax, I just smile and like, yeah, you assholes you are so far from conceiving it possible that you must think it's a hoax. Like it's like a stunt driver who does something amazing. You're like, he must have used some trick to do it. It's like, no,
I mean, I'm willing to entertain that Apollo 11 was a hoax, but like Apollo's, 12, 14, and 15 were like, they definitely landed on the moon at some point.
Well, the argument against the radiation thing is like most of the radiation out there is alpha and beta particles, which is just hydrogen, hydrogen plus. It's just hydrogen ions. It's protons. Which are really easy to block. Same thing with electrons.
Right.
Really easy to block.
Essentially, glass and aluminum does the job.
Like you'll think that's there's tons of radiation. It's like, it's not gamma radiation.
Yeah,
it's not.
All right. We're tangenting hard.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyways, what I'm saying is,
I made it worse.
No. Do you want to bring us back in the weave, or do you want me to do it?
So where we were is, you got to pull back on the things that are anti-agency and essentially create conditions where people can have their agency and be bought into the cultures, customs, and norms, membership of the tribe, etc., and bring them with you through the cutoff of the sugar or the heroin or whatever it is politically.
You cannot conquer the tribes. You have to like win them over. In America, like we don't have like this system where there's knights and lords forcing, and like we're a very non-forceful people. That's what I'm saying, is that with that whole tangent is that you are supposed to entice people, but yes, you can use candy and heroin to do it. However, like what's going to get you more long-term is like some vein of truth, because the Democrats right now have done the candy and heroin to the umpteenth degree, and they're falling apart.
No, they have an ideology and an epistemology that actively rejects the possibility of truth, which interestingly, the Eurocon conservative perspective also rejects the possibility of truth. They're simply not interested in it.
Really, really. Can you expand on that a little bit? But yeah, with the
Yeah,
understanding
if
that
all
our
if
next
all of reality is power relations, and what is true
oh,
is determined by the sovereign. The sovereign is he who determines the exception. You are essentially surrendering any epistemological criterion for truth over to pure power relations.
okay.
It is
This is yeah.
strictly relativistic in the worst way.
This actually makes a lot of
And
sense as
and
to
and you
why.
you actually have to regard it as an anti-truth ideology because it is.
And that's actually an interesting point because the king being selected by God, right? That's the backwards explanation for why he's right. Is he
I mean,
actually just he just
that's a
has might?
justification. The reality is
Yeah,
the king is who has power to be king.
exactly. So it's whoever
So
has
like you're
power is the one for
abandoning
it.
even you're abandoning even the objective measures of either divine dispensation or the mandate of heaven.
Right, right.
Mandate
You're
of
saying,
heaven
yeah,
being earning being in power by just governance that enables people to flourish,
yes,
and divine mandate being God said so.
right.
But
And they're
if
making
your
up the
if your
God said so
criterion for truth
afterwards.
is 100% power based, you're even suborning God to political power as a myth that's necessary for power. So when I
Correct,
say this is
correct.
an anti-truth ideology, like it hates truth.
Right. That makes so much more sense. Okay. I had another point, but I forgot it. That's okay. But it was along the same vein that. Oh yes, I was gonna say the power of like the Catholic Church, right? Like why the Catholic Church was so powerful is because I think it rode that wave of like being part of justifying
Mhm.
the already existing power. I feel like the Catholic Church filled the vacuum. Like it would create the vacuum by removing the pagans and then fill the vacuum by giving an institution. But the institutional power is so huge. This is why when I talk to Catholics, they talk about how like great their cathedrals are and how because that's all power play. I've got a powerful choir. We've got a powerful service. We have the powerful and by the way, having history is power. By the way,
Mhm.
having historical basis is power. So saying this is traditional, saying something is traditional is actually a power move, in my
I mean,
opinion.
it can be a form of co-opting, but I think this is like, even yeah, there are cynical elements to the Catholic Church, but like if you're going to treat with Christianity, straightforwardly, you have to accept that on some level Christians believe their own metaphysics and that they
Oh
may
yeah,
hold
yeah.
ideas about power which are contradictory to that. You know, um, I mean, you're something of an iconoclast, but like when a Catholic tells me that they create these things to glorify God and to represent the glory of God before people, I believe them. I
I believe
believe
it
that they
too.
are
Yeah.
genuinely entertaining and interacting
Well,
with
here's
those metaphysics.
the problem is I've had Catholics explicitly say that the power of the church, like the awe and the power inspires them. Like they won't settle for like being in it. Here's a test. Here's the test. You take someone out of their normal powerful setting with all that stuff that was made to glorify God. You bring them out to
Mhm,
like a wooded holler, right out in the middle of the Appalachians, and you have someone
mhm,
pull a guitar out and then you start singing hymns. And if that's just not good enough for you, well then
mhm.
you're first off you're not an American. Second off,
Right,
you're worshiping the power of the
right.
cathedral is what keeps you going. If you
Yeah,
take
yeah.
that,
Are you are
you know
you
what,
are you actually a Catholic or are you a Mohammedan with a white and yellow flag with a cross on it?
that's correct. Like so many Catholics are actually just Muhammad followers. They just want the power of the church. And there needs to be an interrogation. There needs to be an interrogation of it, and the interrogation of it should. But one of my tells is like,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
well,
enforce laws, also relentlessly enforce your standards.
well,
Like, laws are policing the beyond the pale bad behavior, and you need soft enforcement for for norms that are generally corrosive or not having people be all they should be. Um there's I just to mention there's a great game designer by the name of David Serlin. He was involved in the competitive Street Fighter community for a long time.
oh,
That's where he
nice. I
made
love that
his
community.
his
It's
claim to
awesome. Yeah,
fame. He
those
has
guys
a
are absolutely
great
rad.
podcast from over a decade ago talking about rules to enforce in competition and when you need a hard and soft rule. Around cheating, around bad sportsmanship, et cetera, et cetera. you can apply this to the domain of politics brilliantly. And just for a future conversation, I'm going to go through this and just make annotations to represent his arguments. But there's analogs from another space that are highly valuable here.
That's fascinating. That's actually a whole. Yes, combat. I feel like combat in its purest form is a pursuit of truth. It's a pursuit of truth, of strength, your training, everything you do.
Serlin's playing to win. All games, all contests, all fights are essentially arguments or debates. And you are debating.
Okay.
You are settling the debate through the domain of exertion, not just words. Like, does your do actually beat my do?
Yeah, that's why combat is so important. Like the debate, like to bring it back to Stelios and Academic Agents, like no, debate is a purifying ritual. And when you start like attaching metaphysical rules to who we are, or else we're going to lose the plot. Like debate is a purifying ritual. It's on the level of confession. It's on the level of the public professation. This is why I like, by the way, this is why I like the non-structured Protestant Christianity, is that it is very much sink or swim. If you were a weak Christian, you will appear so. If you were a strong Christian, you'll appear so. Whereas like an institution will put you into like a Play-Doh mold. That's fine. Like if a Play-Doh mold is an improvement of what you'd be doing on your own, do that. Okay.
Right.
But
it also entails bureaucracy.
Yes.
Or hierarchical, certain hierarchical structures, which are not virtue driven, but conformity driven, which kind of creates in and of itself a subtly toxically feminine space.
And why are we bringing this up during a talk about Aaron McIntyre, right? Like that is exactly it. Is that this elite theory stuff necessitates institutions? Like I think I saw a tweet from him about like he's talking about creating elites. You don't create elites. Elites create themselves. You just have to give them the space to do it. If you've ever gardened in your life, it's a lot like that. It's like you have to create the conditions for elites to arise, and then they will present themselves. Often those conditions are suboptimal. Like you cannot have a rat utopia and expect an elite to come out of that. You have to actually. That's why I'm going to make a note to finally actually make a video on paradoxical mediocrity. I'll just make a note really quick. Paradoxical. I made the video and I just never uploaded it because it sucked. which is like 75% of the videos I make is I just never upload them because I'm like, this is really, unless I'm really trying to keep pace. This last video I put up was pretty rough. I'll do better. I promise. The paradoxical mediocrity is that you actually have to have a shitty, suboptimal nursery to incubate elites. You have to have challenges. You have to have suffering. Yeah. It's a Buddhist principle that like desire creates suffering and suffering creates greatness. And that is the cycle upon which great men go through, is that you have to, if you actually think about the devil being woke, it actually makes a lot of sense, which is why it's such a good analog to it, is that removing, chastising men for their desires has alleviated men's suffering, which they become soy boys and Nintendo Switch owners. But it doesn't create great men, right? Utopia is actually dystopia. If you show me a utopia, the first thing I do is burn it down and turn it into an absolute suffering slog fest. Because like these people are cared for. They are not being made to their best self. There should be a certain amount of shit you have to put up with. I believe education should be free. Like people should have lessons available to them. And they should be free to ignore them, by the way. Knowledge, I think, is always something that you have to do a lot of work to internalize. And knowledge is also something that requires humility to internalize. So I don't mind giving that away for free. But like giving a soft cushion for people has been horrendous. And it just debases anyone it touches. It debased American blacks. It's debasing in the moment American whites.
Yep.
If you don't believe that,
I mean, it's been said before, including on here, you know, American blacks are just where, like, in terms of social disintegration, where everyone else is going to be in 20 years.
Correct. Yeah, so long weave on this one to bring it back to Arn McIntyre. I'm struggling to bring it back to him. It's like the thing is, the elite theory is it removes the agency of the bottom people, right? But the bottom people is where America's elites come from. Henry Ford, right. Carnegie, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was running a fucking like a tiny ferry in New York. Like when I say a ferry, it's like he just had a little boat go back and forth, and he was just very, very good with his money. And he saved up a lot of money and built up his like ferrying business in New York. Mm-hmm. And then he just sold all of it and went into railroads, and that's when he made his money.
Yeah,
America.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only one that breaks the pattern is James Pierpont Morgan, but
I don't really know him that well. And there's like a million examples.
J.P. Morgan, the man who essentially remade our financial system. But yeah. I mean, in the main, yeah. And Jeff, you know, you look
Jeff
at
Bezos, all this, yeah.
You look at the history of the like the British Empire. They were actually highly successful because they, you know, essentially created an imperial system that was like, you know, almost precision calibrated to take young men and find the ones with talent and enable them to do a lot more, especially somewhere else, and then bring them back in.
I see. Yes. So they use that as a way of sharpening themselves. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, America is an empire unto itself. So we have an ability to sharpen ourselves inside of America. I think that like when I was working at DeWalt Power Tools, I was sent to remote locations and everything, and I had to like deal with customers, like actual users, not customers. The customers are the guys who had the spreadsheets, and they would just make the purchase of pallets worth of tools. The actual users are the ones who are using it every day, and they give me like really great feedback. But like the class consciousness gets in the way of American greatness, and this elite theory is class consciousness, and I don't want that shipped in. I think there are classes in America, but the classes are sorted by merit and they're fit to change. I forget where I found it on X, but there was a great video that said like 90% of people who are born into riches, like net worth of $1 million or more, or something like that, 90% of them are not rich the next generation. Like as was it Steinbeck or Mark Twain who said that like families are always rising and falling in America. We don't have noble families. Trump's family could be broke in 2 generations. We might see it. You never know. Who knows what's going to happen? You know?
Yeah. And I mean, I've talked about this in the past, citing Barbara Tuchman's A Distant Mirror, talking about the Middle Ages. One of the first things she talks about is the prodigious churn of knighted and noble families in France. And I think it's like every 20 years there's a 50% churn.
That's right.
Some of them stick around for a really long time, and it's actually like intergenerational dynasties that can really grow. It's not just that they got wealth; it's that they're breaking the builder, sustainer, squanderer cycle.
Yes.
And that's super worth paying attention to why it happens. But you know, there's an interesting thing too, and like, you know, Carl had a video today about the inheritance tax in the UK.
Yes.
The inheritance tax fucks over the game of accretion, like that building from monkey to now. It is done intergenerationally. Everything we do is essentially part of an intergenerational game. We're pushing forward into the future, and that means thinking beyond one's lifespan. Building something great involves thinking beyond one's lifespan, even if it's spatially and not just temporally.
It would be fascinating to go through England's laws or the UK's laws and say like how this foils great men. Like this is a system that culturally and legally fucks over great men.
I mean, the U.S. we could do the same thing in the U.S. with like the tax code to business regulations, like what's providing reasonable protections to, you know, people, markets, environment, etc. and what's just there to suppress and suppress and
Right.
suppress.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure it's a matter of degrees, but like the English seem to have no limit to where they're willing to go, whereas the Americans tend to chimp out if stuff gets too crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, because Americans very rapidly got themselves out of the bucket of crabs mentality or the tall poppy mentality. I don't know exactly how we did it, but boy, did we beat that fast.
I don't know.
And the Europores, including the British, still have it.
They still have it. Absolutely. Like
I mean, that's part of why a legal system where everyone is effectively normalized down to 35,000 pounds a year is acceptable. You know, is for that to persist on some level, the people have to believe in it.
I think we should close up pretty soon because we're at a 2.5 hour mark. But
yeah, we haven't really gotten into Oron McIntyre much other than the broad strokes. You know, I feel like we were much more
details. We can get into it. I mean, I don't mind going for another half an hour if you want to get into it.
No. I'm not equipped to cover him in depth in half an hour, but I think we should pick this one up because it really is worth reviewing. You know, just returning to the rules for Righticles. You know, you open it. You're in power, now what, or something to that effect. You know, we got to look at like, okay, how do you exercise discernment and figure out who your coalition actually is, and you know who's you know the friend that you made in the wilderness that you have to forsake, like Henry V forsaking Falstaff. Like after a certain point, you just can't afford to carry this person with you.
Well, I'm okay. By the way, I don't have to do these just on Thursdays. As I said, I have tomorrow off, but like if you want to do them on Saturdays or something like that too. We could have one cast that's like pretty well researched where we're staying on topic and one we're just bullshitting through. Because we have a certain amount of bullshit that we just need an outlet for. But
for sure.
I was gonna say, like, what are your odds? Do you feel better or worse about the French? Because you're like a big French puller with the how do you feel? Did you change at all with the constitution, like the continental versus English? Sounds like it changed a little bit.
I think the French are kind of like the Italians, where like the system that their laws and government operate on are like, you know, that's what it says on paper, but is that actually how it goes? Like,
oh, I see.
Only kind of.
That's what Carl was saying about English common law, though, too. Is like there are certain unwritten rules or something like that, and I was like, that's insane.
No, it graduates to full on like black and gray markets, like, what's on paper and what happens in the real world are not necessarily the same thing. The French less so than the Italians, but they definitely have some of that.
I do have a video that I had made 4 years ago, which I'm going to I never uploaded because it sucked. That is actually, if I could bring it up, it's a freaking fly around here, just like flying straight in my eyeball. That was audacious. You know what? I respect that fly. All right, you can live. It was about the. I was just as a creative exercise doing the 9 circles of civilization. I don't know if I could even bring it up, but the I'll give you the broad strokes. The inside is the symbolic leader who transcends life itself. Like, so for the woke people, it's Barack Obama. For the conservatives, it might be Ronald Reagan. Now it's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Like if Donald Trump died tomorrow,
he's your pharaoh, the god before the people and man before the gods.
But on the outside ring is so that's the inside ring. It's always static. Now there's other rings in there, like people organizers. There's like material distributors, that sort of stuff. Those are like stock market and HR people, right? Like they have a lot of people organizers are very important. That's who organizes the. There's cultural, like mimetic, like meme producers, people who produce culture, right? Those all change position. Like merchants, warriors, that sort of shit, all changes positions. Peasants are actually roughly generated as the labor that produces. So peasants are factory workers. But on the inside is your symbolic leaders. On the very outside are your tolerated criminals. And those two layers, the inside and the outside, are the most important layers of your civilization. So this black market, gray market stuff It's there to make up for the moral incongruities of your civilization.
Right, exactly.
Let's say you're a young man, you're horny, you don't want to like have sex with a virgin who's like in your parish. You got to do something. You can't, you got to. So you go to a prostitute at the dock. That is the outer, like the tolerated criminal element.
Right.
It is there to absorb your vices and absorb. Also, if there's another politician who is horrendously corrupt and you can't do anything about it, you'd probably have him assassinated and you'd have to call in favors with the tolerated criminals. Robin Hood is a really good example of a tolerated criminal.
Yep.
Is when the rest of the moral system breaks down, you need that. And the problem is if you have a world of extremely strict rules, it's really difficult to have and this is why I think the English have screwed themselves over, is they don't have tolerated criminals, so they imported a bunch, and the imported bunch are not loyal. Like if you had a bunch of Charlie Brons, if you had 10,000 Charlie Bronsons on the street of London, no one's getting mugged. They're all going to have like fights at random pubs, about random bullshit, but they're not going to be like attacking normal people. They're going to be following the common rules of decency. Right. And I almost wonder if there's like some play, like there's some carve out for people that are like objectionable, but they're useful. But I feel like that's I don't know.
I mean, historically, that's been one of the great games of like getting along in a high complexity, high capacity civilization is essentially creating those carve outs. It also just hit me while you're speaking that like Benjamin Franklin might be a massively underappreciated moral entrepreneur because his writings are essentially full of this kind of thing. And like, here's how to make this domain of borderline antisocial behavior tolerable. Have sex with older widows.
I saw that. That was great. I was actually talking to my wife. She's gonna hate this. I hope she doesn't overhear this. I was saying that because I was seeing who was it, Destiny, who was like into some girl who he thought was 19 but was 17. I was like, going after these young girls, that's immoral. You got to be an absolute MILF man. Okay, the MILF man is the man of God. He's the one. MILF stands for MILF is for moral, intimate, loving family. That's what it is. That's what it stands for. It's like going after that is the perfect. Like, also, like, why are you going after people who are so young? It's a psychological thing. There's a lot of girls who are late 20s, early 30s who are perfectly attractive. It's like it starts to become like a power thing. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know. And so
I understand this is a normal range of human experience, and like maybe I'm a bit aberrant in my own way, but I do find it, like, to me, jarring when power enters into people's sexuality. And like I understand how it gets there and how it's normal and all this stuff. That doesn't stop it from being weird to me.
Right. Dude, love is supposed to be like a lazy river. You're supposed to get on there and flow with it. Okay. It's one of the things you're supposed to let go of the need for control. If you got to bring control into love, that's kind of fucked up, I think. Like true love, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all managing our own subclinical pathologies, but
yeah, we are. We're super subclinical. We will have to talk about Aaron McIntyre when we have some more details on him, eh?
Yeah. I did a lot more prep for AA. I mean, Aaron McIntyre is always worth coming up because he's just like, he's one of those Twitter follows where for me it's like I would have unsubscribed long ago if you didn't have like something that was either a banger or like, like, oh, this is a starting point for a shit fit that's really illuminating to follow.
Correct. He's it was kind of funny. I'm about to go. By the way, I didn't even get into why he blocked me on Twitter because I just wrote a bit. I wrote a bit on how it's completely normal for ethnicities. I was on the autism spectrum. I was just writing about how it's absolutely totally normal for ethnicities to get replaced in America, like all the time. It just happens all the time, and also for them to get subjugated all the time. Like it's just normal. And I guess that like struck a nerve because it's like if you think of America as being a place of churn and movement, it's hard to build a heritage on that. And the fact is, like, the original heritage people of America are kind of on their last leg. There's almost none left, I think. There's individuals, but there's not a society.
I mean, they're much more fragmented. And I mean, I think part of that is also just America's own individualism is like family, and it's really transformed a lot over time. And talking about our modern conception of it versus talking about the past conception of it, and in what epoch the disintegration occurred is like, it's not a conversation you can have at an ideological level.
The only real Americans they're going to be left are going to be Amish people, which are Germans, by the way. But they're just going to go over to like some farmer's market and be like, "What do you think about this?" They're like, "Huh? What? I don't know. You want to buy a quilt?" Yeah. It's America is an interesting. America. I'm going to close with this. America is far too complex of a place to conceive upon it with any existing framework, I think, which is why it deserves. And I think Americans don't get the deserved study that they need. Most people just write us off. They'll go.
You said it. You said it earlier. Like, it would really behoove the Euros to, rather than be dismissive of American perspectives, be very, very inquisitive about the habits of mind of Americans.
Yeah. As I said before, the way I interrogated what is an American versus what is a foreigner, like heritage person who's a complete piece of shit, fresh import who's an absolute hero. I was like, if you start doing these like A/B tests with Americans and find out their temperament, you can actually nail it down. And I bet you it's extremely consistent. I would bet you. Because we've gone through all these ethnic strife. The thing is, we've gone through a bunch of ethnic strife. And I guess I'll close on this, is that like, if we go Eurocon or Aaron McIntyre con, EthnoCon, we are opening up 250 years of ethnic strife that we've already lived through and we've already resolved. And I don't want to do that again. And all this like, oh, you can't return to Fresh Prince. Like, the stuff that deviated us from the 90s, I think, was a tremendous amount of fake and gay ops to divide us. Like, it was a concerted effort to remove the homeostasis.
It's been more than 3 decades of nonstop deliberate attack to get us to this point.
People say like LA riots, but like, well, that's LA. Who gives a shit? Dude, LA was a setting of Predator 2. It's not a peaceful place. It's gonna burn. It's gonna burn regardless. Like, what do you want to? What do you want?
LA is also like the setting for the first 3 minutes of Total Recall, and it's like LA in the 90s, first 3 minutes of Total Recall, and like, yeah, if you were living through the LA of the 80s, I could totally believe that you would believe this.
Yeah, exactly. Like putting the future of America on LA is like showing like, here is the future of Europe, and like that Serbian like accordion player. Like, no, that's not the rest of Europe. That's just Serbia. It's this weird place where all the wars happen.
Right. Wait, there's also like Judge Dredd or RoboCop, like, you know, especially for the period, like, and, you know, Death Wish, like, rolling forward the problems that America experienced in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It was some like bleak stuff, but it also like New York, but it also shows like, no. If you just go back to enforcing standards in the law, like, these problems disappear really fast.
Yeah,
it's
stop giving people free money.
It's just you're tolerating them.
Exactly.
Like, you have to say we're not going to live like this anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Yeah, I'm pissed off. Actually, you know what? It pisses me off is that people will look at America when we stop being as American as we should be. We start becoming really tolerant or whatever. And it was like, I guess what I'm saying is like the traditional European people will look at America when we go a little bit too liberal, a little bit too forgiving, tolerant. And it's like, well, look, America's doomed to failure. It's like, we're doing the shit that you guys want. Like the liberals of your people want. Like, America's typically a pretty brutal place to break the law. Like, anyways. So enforce the laws, stop giving people free money. And America will be awesome again. DC is like down 83% of burglaries or vehicle. I forget what it was. Burglaries or the vehicle thefts. It was some ridiculous amount. It's been 7 days, I think, since they took control. It's just like night and day. I don't know. It's running a civilization is actually pretty, You could be kind of an idiot and do it. Getting overly philosophical is something you should do maybe for the national identity. That's a typical thing, actually, what national identity is. But we'll talk about that, I think, along with Aaron McIntyre at another time. So
Yep. Yeah, talk about the post rational order.
And we're going to talk about it from both what the philosophers think and also what I think the revealed preference of America is. And we'll see what makes sense. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us this far. Appreciate you. You have a good one.
Do my traditional queen wave here.
I'm going to do my traditional hit the end stream button and like at some determinate number of seconds, it'll actually end the stream.